before we get started, because I might put this on YouTube, I guess I'll try and be a little bit more formal, is that the word for it, about this? But yeah, so yesterday we saw World's 2023 Finals, T1 versus Weibo. And there were a lot of questions I came out of that series with, partly because it was such a short series. So I thought I'd go through this series to kind of look at a couple of things. So one of the big things which we see immediately from the off, and we saw this a couple of days before the series started, Weibo won the coin toss for finals, and they chose to take blue side. Now that's going to impact things pretty hugely, because when we get into this draft, you see like the bans will show certain things, being able to blind pick and counter pick will show certain things too, and it gave me a lot of questions about how Weibo and T1 were going to interact in this series. So even on the first game and the first draft, I was thinking, oh heck, this is not looking very good for Weibo, and T1 seems to have a really good angle. So this is something that we're going to see pretty much the whole series, I feel like, in regards to a couple of these bans. I want to get through all of the bans first, and then we'll talk about why they're significant. This Silas ban is obviously atypical. We haven't seen that anyone else banning Silas, especially in first round. But this is a couple of really important things. Let's write some text on screen. You know what, actually, I'm going to put some music in the back. I am going to put some music in the background, actually. Just a little bit. Put it down. There we go. Helps me think. Okay, so what these are blind picks. These are denying blind picks. All of them. There is nothing in the meta right now which Nico, Ori, and Rumble can't lane against, really. On the same side here, this is targeting... This is targeting Faker, plus blinds again. So what we're seeing here is Faker only played, 4 champions. Only played 3, rather. So he's only played 3 champions. But if Weibo are choosing blue, they have to understand that they are going to lose counterpick, and they're going to have strong blind picks. Hello. So this is the big point. This is the huge point up here. This is the huge point, which I'm going to circle in a different color. Which is not very visible, actually. But the thing is, if Weibo are going to choose blue side, they need to have strong blind picks. Turn that up a little bit. So they first pick the Maokai, and then we have very quick lock-ins after this point. So, this is a battle of blind picks. Very hard lane to counter. Ergo. Because this is a great blind. This is a great blind pick. Maokai is strong 5v5 at least. Very, very strong 5v5. But the problem is, I don't know if you're going to get to those 5v5s if you're going to lose lane so hard. Hey, Foxy. And now we see the Jace come through. But like... My dudes, my dudes, what you have done here is we're gonna delete the Maokai point, because that's pretty well known at this point. But blind picking both solo lanes. What is this? What is this from a first round? You have 2 bans here, which now have to be what? Yone? What else is an Aatrox counter? I mean, I guess other players would counter it with Renekton, but we've seen Zeus play the Yone into into the Aatrox. So we know that the Yone has to be a ban here, right? And the Yone immediately comes through. And I think this is a really good recognition by T1, because suddenly, well, I mean, it's quite obvious, right? If you lock the Yone on 3, you can't ban it out in the second round. So we'll delete this as well. So now already, first round, I'm going to delete this out here. Great blind, bot, great top counter. Because what these are, you're not going to be winning these lanes. You're not going to be winning these lanes, really. You could have banned out the Gwen as well. But, could have saved a top 4, 4, 5, but this means I'm gonna go this down a font size. Zeus can't be banned out. Yeah, this is an insane first round from T1. And on the other side of this, you know, you look at how Weibo have now got themselves into a point where they're getting countered in both solo lanes. That's a huge problem. It's a huge problem for them. Callista counter. Celebrated his 70th. Yeah, I love that, Atlas. Celebrated his 70th unique champion. It's just the way he phrases it. It's like, oh, we celebrated his 70th birthday. No, 70th unique champion. That's what we celebrate here. That's what we celebrate here. Do you want the most counter picks you can get? Or rather, that's how I'm paraphrasing Foxy Luxana in chat. In certain metas, blind picks are stronger than counter picks. However, as we see here, if you could pick all of these champions, I mean, obviously you couldn't in this case because Nico and Ori are in the same role. If you could blind pick all of those champions, or something like a Jarvan as well, and you could have Rumble, Jarvan, Orianna, you would prefer to have the blind picks. You'd prefer to have first picks, you can lock up all of these champions. Once these are gone, in this world's meta, we have seen that counter picks, particularly from T1, are more valuable than blind picks. That's going to be an increasingly important factor in this series, and we see it right the way from game 1. Because these kind of champions, they win lane, they fight very, very well in team fights, and they never really run out of damage. Jarvan has a 2-item spike of Gordrinka Shojin, which means that he is incredibly strong on his own. So in certain metas, you will want strong blind picks, strong first picks, over the counter picks. Either way, just having 1 or 2 of these can matter for your draft, right? And this is something which we see very differently in this game 1 from what we've seen in the rest of the tournament from T1. Because how this has gone for T1, I'm going to write this out to a little bit to the side. I might take this down first, but like Faker only playing Ori, Azir, Silas is fine. If Faker blind picks, top, bot, get room to counter. This is the big thing. This is the big thing when looking at T1 coming into this finals. Someone has to blind pick. Someone has to blind pick. In T1's case, they've chosen it to be now, this does change a little bit, because, of course, you have such strong blind picks from Goober and Carrier, because they have really strong laning phase.
As T1 are the ones blinding their bot lane, they're going to be banning away the Varus, the Ashe, 2 of those really highly prized picks. Crisp has been playing more of the enchanters, though. He's moved towards things like Lux and Heimer when Renata was gone.
And instead of banning out something like mid laners, they've now chosen to ban out junglers on top side. This is fine, because this bans away melee synergy and then the Wombo. Because if you play against the Callista Renata and then a Sejuani or a Rel, you effectively just get hit on your first target and you just immediately die. These are fine second round bans. They think that they've already taken away the picks which Faker can use to take over mid, which is completely fine. This Jace will arguably not be in a... They're not going to be in a problematic position. The Jace is going to be fine. And now you have Maokai Jace, which is a very strong combination. At least it was at the end of summer. It's fallen off a little bit. Teams haven't been able to utilize it as well. Teams like LNG were very, very strong at that in summer. But they haven't been able to use it particularly well at Worlds.
So Faker's Ari coming out, and that does immediately make you think, could it be a Vi as that last pick?
And this is now completely fine, though, in terms of draft. This Ari pick. Even if we don't talk about the blind pick and the counter pick, if we just like, I mean, very quickly, if we just blot out everything that's happening here, we just don't think about this. We just don't think about what Weibo's doing. And we think about what T1 are doing here. T1 have a very fast-paced draft. They have a very fast-paced draft. Win top, early push mid, crush bot, force fights, and win. Before Maokai Jace is an issue. Hey, Jonas. This is what they're doing with this comp. This is what they're doing. The Ahri will get push. It will get push. Because Ahri only loses push against a lot of mages, which chunk her out when she's looking to push the wave and trade hard. And that's how she tends to lose. So she tends to lose against Victor, Orianna, and a lot of mages. So Weibo, I seem to remember thinking this at the time, and I was thinking maybe they go for the Senna. But the Senna Tahm Kench now basically locks you into 3 losing lanes. And now all T1 think is 3 winning lanes. Pick, aggro jungler, feel happy. That's all they're thinking right here. You have push in every single lane. So that's when we see, obviously, we see the choices of, like, what, Xin Zhao, Lee Sin, maybe something like a Viego. They go for the Lee Sin, which is completely fine. Because now look how mobile this team is. Everyone but Renata is hopping over walls. Which is really, really annoying for the side of Weibo. So we're going to clear off a bit of the screen. That's fine. Blind picks is fine. Close to counter, that's fine. That's fine. So let's just pause it and write out some win conditions just before we get into the game. But yeah, this Lee Sin makes an awful lot of sense because let's just point out this in particular. Why the Lee Sin last pick? Why don't we see it more? 3 winning lanes with early fight potential. Huge mobility to close the gap onto Weibo, who outrange. And this is a big thing too. This is a big thing. Weibo outrange, but they'll never get to use it. Oops, I'm bad at typing. Too much engage and mobility from T1 make their draft very risky. This is my thoughts coming out of this draft. Where you now have a problem where who's going to have the hardest time here? Well, basically whoever T1 tends to just wants to... That's very loud. Mitsuo Maeda, thanks for the follow. I really appreciate it. Because this is a thing which I think a lot of people oversimplify. You are not going... Oh, hey, Kira, how's it going? Fuck Weibo, by the way. I know, right? So, you are not going to be able to use a range advantage if you are gap closed on and engaged onto. This is a thing which people tend to oversimplify a lot, because I think a lot of people tend to assume, oh, I'm longer range. That means that I'm going to outscale, right? Well... if you get to use that range advantage, sure. Like if I'm sat like over here and you're over here, then yeah, I get to keep my range advantage all day long. That's awesome. But what if they're faster than you? What if they can close the distance really, really quickly? Then actually they're not there. They move over to half the distance or whatever. In the case of say the Ahri and the Lee Sin. I mean, Yone's going to hop over a wall, Lee Sin's going to hop over a wall, Ahri's going to, Kalista's going to throw the Renata at you, and Renata's going to close off your retreat. You're not playing at this distance anymore, you're playing at this distance. It's a very, very different it's a very, very different style of thinking about that kind of thing, right? In this game now, Weibo want the game to be as slow as possible. And what they really want to happen is Weiwei to just control the early game from Weibo and T1. Otherwise, this is going to be an absolute disaster. Weibo thought that to beat T1, they needed to be like Genji and completely forget who they are mid-tournament. In a lot of sense, you're right. They try and rectify this. I actually think the best draft was game 3. We'll get to that when it comes to it, though. We're going to go through all of the games today, and they are fairly quick games. But obviously, there's Ari locked in. I'll focus on what Faker's doing on the Ari, because obviously he missed a lot of skill shots. We remember that from watching it live, but that doesn't mean it was a bad game. I actually think he had a pretty good game on the whole. In terms of his decision making was more than fine. Why did I get pinged in my own Discord? Shouldn't do that. Oh, right, yeah. That was a different thing. Okay, cool. We're fine. We're good. Right, so let's get into game. And let's see this gift of an early game. And I need to move my camera as well. I need to do that. Yeah, triple TP. Good call out from Azel. That's something that you often forget. You don't have a combat summoner on the Tom Kench a lot of the time. Hang on, let me move this up a little bit. Move it up here. There we go. I'll be hiding some stats. I'm sorry, folks. Right. So, what are we thinking? Let's just write a little bit on screen. I'll try and keep this fairly clean. But once fight early. Once you fight early, have 3 winnings. 3 winning lanes. Yone, huge side threat. When things go later. So this is the big thing from T1. I think these are the big things here. What games to be slow? Be slow. Try and fight in 5v5 rather than 2v2, 3v3, where T1 win. Use Maokai to strong arm objectives, maybe win Herald for gold early. I'm going to move that up here. So this is the big things which I think both these teams should be keeping an eye on in early game. Hey Dom, how's it going?
To connect your League of Legends account with Prime Gaming to grab the exclusive Brom W emote. And if you haven't done it already, my goodness, I mean, just do it. Just do it now.
Is there anything else that we want to focus on here? But the big thing is T1 have 3 winning lanes with an aggressive jungler. Like, that is such... that is like the cardinal sin of professional League of Legends. Hey Phil, how's it going? Long time no see. But yeah, this is the cardinal sin of professional League of Legends drafting. You are losing all 3 lanes, and they have an aggressive jungler. So Lee Sin gets to choose anywhere on the map to go to, and absolutely monster it. Faker's been famous for Ahri for 10 years now. No, Faker was probably the best Ahri in the world alongside Xiaohu last year at MSI when Ahri first came into meta. And this is really important for T1 here as well, to just use the level 1 as best you can. Use the brush to make sure that, again, so we talked about range advantage in team fights. This also happens in laning phase. If you can hit them when they're stood like here, haha, that's great. If they're stood here because they're using the vision of the brush, to the vision denial of the brush, you don't get to use your range advantage because you can't target them. Kira jumping in for the analysis. I was going to do this solo, but you know what? I'm going to keep this as solo just because my PC has been not acting particularly well recently. And if I'm streaming to someone else at the same time, I don't want to push it over the edge because I've had a couple of PC crashes recently. So I'd rather just get this done today. But very happy to VoD view Kira in the future. It's a very enjoyable experience. I enjoyed the last one we did. That's another thing as well. One of the broken things about Kalista. So W gives you some decent passive damage when... So for those that don't know, with Kalista W, if you and your marked target auto-attack the same target, then you get some extra percent HP damage. And also with the W, you get to scout into the enemy jungle. So with that Sentinel going down towards bot side on the minimap down here, if you look down here, that means that they know that, I believe they know now that between this is the Faker ward as well. Between this, they know that bot side has been cleared. They know that Weibo will be on top side. You have 3 pushing lanes. Owner gets to be a little gremlin in the enemy jungle. So Owner's done a really important thing here. He just says, okay, cool, Weibo, I'm just going to take up your time. The only way where Weibo get back into these lanes is by Weibo making a numbers advantage. Owner makes sure that that won't happen. Zeus comes down as well to make sure that Weibo has a very unfortunate time. Owner misses a couple of Qs, so it means that you can't actually fight him. But you take away something. Use one of his saplings too. That's close. That's really close. That's really close though, man. Let's go into that again, actually. Let's go into that flash jump. Is there any way that Faker could have used this differently? You don't want to take tower aggro, so you need to lead with Charm. If you led with something else, there's a good chance that Xiaohu could kind of turn it around with the extra turret shot of damage. Good aggressive plays, though. You know what? There's an argument. So I'm trying to think where Faker's positioned here. So as an Ahri player, I'm somewhat of an Ahri player myself. Because there are no minions, you know what I'd do? I would instead of Flash E. So Flash E is what Faker did. Potential you can Flash QW auto for electrocute. You can potentially flash for that. Save Charm for after Jace flashes. Because if you look at the amount of HP that Xiaohu's on right here, if you get Flash Q and you connect with the first bit, you auto in a W, he doesn't have minions to flash to, right? So he can flash to here, he can flash to here, he can flash to here. Or those are the only, and you're not going to be flashing here, right? Because that's right in front of the Lee Sin. You kind of have to flash down these 2 directions. You're not getting behind a minion. So if you get the flash here for your damage rather than the CC, you can potentially save the charm until afterwards. And then if Lee Sin lands the Q, you can then charm this direction, and then you or like you don't even need him to land the Q. If you land the charm, he's just so dead. So maybe there's an option for a big trade from Faker into the charm afterwards, because if you flash into that position too, Faker's also not going to take tower because he's flashed out of the tower range. So that's just a maybe an optimization they could have made on that play. Either way, you now have no flash for Jace, no flash for Ahri. Xiaohu's going to have to teleport back as well. Faker wants to shove the wave back in. So where he flashes in mid. Faker cancels the To the Skies, which is actually pretty good there. What does this mean, though? What does this mean? So Xiaohu gets first blood, so that's an extra 400 gold. He's not recalling right now, and he doesn't want to recall because it's a cannon wave. You want to recall the wave before a cannon wave. So Faker gets to teleport back. Xiaohu's not going to have any more combat gold for now. Can he afford to recall right now? So as you see right now, like, the combat stats in mid lane, if you look down at the item bar, they're actually, like, not... In terms of inventories, like, this hasn't changed anything just yet. So in terms of T1's early game plans, this doesn't change anything for them right now. Faker just goes beyond the wave there a little bit to make sure that Xiaohu can't get a free recall at that point.
Incompetent.
Okay, thanks for the follow, I appreciate it. So, this is good from Weibo to flash into one of these lanes. Like we said, the only way that Weibo survive these winning lanes is by Weibo making a numbers advantage, somebody getting a good gank. He uses a flash for it, so now you're flashed down on both mid and jungle, which is a bit of an issue. And this is now one of the follow-ups. You can see that Xiaohu is missing a wave in mid lane because of the timing of the gank, and because he couldn't get a reset on a cannon wave. If Faker chooses Ahri, she'll get a skin with wings. T1 theme historically? Maybe. That'll be fun. Ahri's already an angel to me. It's fine. She doesn't need them just for me. Okay, so now Xiaohu's got himself a base. Faker gets another reset in as well. In these early laning phases, you really do want to be getting as much combat stats as possible in volatile lanes. Xiaohu versus Ahri's matchup here is quite volatile. So you want to make sure you have as many combat stats as possible. Fake has a Dark Seal as well, which is pretty good for early stats as well in laning phase. Top lane's had full control, bot lane's had full control. So this normally means that you get free dragons as well. Owner used his first kind of aggressive option of the game to go into topside jungle and steal away a camp. So he's not had a chance to go towards objectives just yet towards this. Once we get past Herald, by the way, we're going to clear off this text on the screen, and then we'll revisit win conditions potentially at that point. Because we'll be moving on from early game win conditions to then mid game. Because T1's draft, it has a lot of early game power. That doesn't mean that you only have early game power, but this kind of composition, you're assuming that you have an early advantage because of the champions that you have. So then we're going to have a chat afterwards about what T1 can do if they're not on an early lead. Because currently, even in gold, 6 minutes in. CS differences are, I mean, obviously the CS is between the Kalista and the Tom Kentress, as Zell's pointing out there as well. But, yeah, once we get past Herald, I think that's going to be a big moment. Because I think that Weibo, if they get the early injection of gold from Herald, then you're looking at T1's earlier spiking comp, or with more power in the early game, having failed one of its big objectives in the game. So, Weiwei still doesn't have flash, Xiaohu still doesn't have flash, you have level 6s coming up for jungle soon. That'll come up around 7:30 or so, just before Herald. And at that point, you're really looking to see if T1 can focus down one of these flashless members of Weibo. I think that's probably the next big objective that they want. Because if you take someone off the map from Weibo, this is another thing too. That's kind of an important concept within early game League of Legends. If someone dies, and in this case, because you don't have flashes on some key members against big playmakers, you can't then defend the next play. Because suddenly, if Weiwei's down, then Owner gets to go to another lane. It's a free play. And yes, sometimes they'll need to have resets as well, don't get me wrong. After you've made a big play, you do want to reset and you spend that gold that you've taken. But if you die as the defensive team in the early game, like, oh my word, you're in for a world of hurt. Because things start to snowball after that point, because you're not alive to defend for the next play. You can't be in position to defend the next turret dive, or whatever it is. Okay, so now we have level 6s coming in for jungle. We have Herald coming up as well. What rotations do we have for Herald? T1 have a couple of options, because now when you're going towards this Herald as T1, I'm going to pause it very quickly. As it stands, you win as this 3v3. You're more mobile, you're very good at soloing down targets, but you do have the flashes back for these two members here now. So you have the Jace and the Maokai flash back. So you can choose to try and force a 3v3, and the way you do that is by obviously throwing like Kalista and Renata into a big fight bot side, or threatening basically that Light and Crisp can get threatened in a 2v2, or they'll lose a lot of turret plates. So now this is where we see the dance around Herald, and we see, okay, what's happening in terms of resets? Instead, we see both bot lanes reset and head towards topside. They don't have to commit to going towards Herald right now as well. And Kamizda, thanks for the follow. Yeah, you can see, yeah. So Chronicle is pointing this out as well. It's good stuff there. So T1 are actually looking towards the 5v5 as well. This is potentially dangerous for T1 because you do have the ability to save one of your carries from the largely single target pick from T1 because you have the Tom Kench ult. That's come up now. You don't have the center ult. That is important. And Renata doesn't have ult too. If Renata gets ult, gets it off the mid lane by doing that now, you have a slight ultimate advantage. This is really good. So why don't Weibo look for something around this Herald? Why don't they look for this? I think they're afraid that they can't get themselves into the right kind of corridors. You have a couple of different issues here, because as soon as this ultimate's online, the hostile takeover, you can't just pile in one direction and say if Maokai was around here, or if you went down either of these corridors with something like the Maokai ults, you're then immediately responded to by the hostile takeover. Taking Herald doesn't tend to cost you a lot of HP. That's the big difference between taking Herald as opposed to taking Dragon or Baron, because they do a lot of damage to you. So Weibo, they're pushed in towards topside. Zest does need to come down for this. T1 have full vision control. They get an ult onto carrier before they get it onto center as well. And then Weibo are kind of stat here going like, well, we've rotated everyone up, So why the heck are they still staying here? So they're looking to clear out some vision. They see the Herald go down. Faker has a really good all in him. This is absolutely fine. So he goes in here. Now he needs to not charm Xiaohu or Light because they're just going to get devoured and Chris will get out. So he's aiming for the Tahm Kench here. And you have a lot of ability to fly forward with this too. Own is not in range, but he does get the charm onto Chris. This is likely forcing a flash, but you have CC on top of this too. Really good hostile takeover. Yeah. Weibo overstay incredibly far. I'm going to clear the text off the screen. And now, what did we just say? You know, once you die, you're not in position to defend the next player as well. I want to see what T1 do with Chris being off the map. He can't secure vision right now. So instead, actually, Weibo make a really good response here. They know that T1 have just committed towards the mid-bot side. They can maybe look towards top side as well. Flash forward, hop back in. Really good response from Weibo, actually. Yeah. Weibo makes the right call here. This is because if you allow T1 to make the next big play after you've just kind of been killed in mid and you've been forced back and you can't control vision because you've just lost your support as well, then things start going from bad to worse. So Weibo actually makes like one of the few timing opportunities you get to make an aggressive play in this early game. That's good because, again, you still have the Yone side lane win condition here from T1. Zeus dying early and giving some extra gold over to the Shy to maybe get him up to a point where he can fight him is really important for Weibo to maybe just set back the timer a little bit on how unfeasible it's going to be to play the map against this Yone.
Fast enough, so Weibo was able to get ahead of him, blocks the ulti, and then from that point, Zeus says, you know what, I'm dead either way, so I'm going to hold on to the flash, but that is an unfortunate...
So, do we have item breakpoints coming through? This is an important thing as well. I'm going to note this as well. This should actually be an Everfrost game from Ari. I know I have maligned the item a lot, but with T1... yes, you're sole AP from the Ari, so you can get some more damage from going from a flat pen build or just going high damage in general because there's no magic resist. But you're setting up for the big Yone ult. You want to be forcing out defensive abilities like the Devour. And what the Everfrost does is allow you to pin the Tahm Kench in place and then charm the Tahm Kench in place. So the Tahm Kench can't perform his job. He can't perform his job. The carries of Weibo are going to get pinned in place one way or another. And it's also very good for Lee Sin. So I'm just going to note it down in shorthand there, but it's very good for your Lee Sin. He's going to be doing a lot of damage this game. And it's going to be good against the Tahm Kench, who doesn't have a cleanse. There's no cleanse on the side of Weibo. And you don't want to be building Merc Treads this game. So I know a lot of the time I say that when the enemy's not building Merc Treads, maybe you should be going towards something burstier instead, like a Ludens. In this game, because you're playing against HP stackers, but you are also sole AP, because they're not building Merc Treads, it's actually better to build the Everfrost this game, because it allows you to set up from your teammates to do a lot of damage. I think Faker's got it. This is a perfect game for a Faker Ari performance. Faker has always loved playing the utility Ari. He's always made good on the promise you make to your team when you build the Everfrost to have value in terms of CC. So this is a high value game for him. T1 immediately chaining into a bot to another dragon as well. So they're getting 2 early dragons. Chemtech Soul's already off the Rift. So you don't have the lowest value soul in the game. Cloud Rift, how does that matter? Actually pretty big this game because again, one of the things that we said in draft, right, was this is the outrange team from Weibo. Weibo playing for the outrange team. With the extra move speed, you're dodging a lot of the skill shots which are coming back in, whether that's a Senna W or a Shock Blast or something like that, and it allows you to close the distance a little bit more. So if Faker ults forward, puts them into a better position to look for the engages. Cloud Soul's actually pretty big. And in regards to side laning as well, because of the Cloud Rift, these things around the buffs too, makes it a lot easier to rotate to side lanes and make a big play. It's a good Q3. Oh, it's a good center ult. It's a really good center ult, actually. So that's T1 disrespecting the center ult. You have the early Dirk as well built up from Light at this point, so the armor penetrations come through onto the base damage. Let's go through this a little bit slower. Let's go through this a little bit slower and have a think about how this works out. So you lock up Weiwei, who's full HP, doesn't have flash. Owner doesn't... So he doesn't have the Q on target for Weiwei because he's used it at the start here. Gets him out of melee range of Zeus. The knockback from Q means that Zeus is too slow to move out of it. He could have flashed out of the center ult and probably looked for another auto and probably survived. But I think they just disrespect the center ult. That's actually pretty simple. They go into a 2v2.5 because the center ult counts for half there. So this is a big thing too. I know this is some... Oh, that's just thinking that because of the low HP, they were trying to mind game that Chris was going to go in at that point. So this is something which I think it's Azael says this on cast, and I wanted to add an addendum to it, because I think that Azael says, Weibo going back to what they did in the LPL and playing around topside. That's strictly not true for Summer. This was true for what they did in regionals, where Weibo would play very well towards the Shy, particularly when we saw them against top esports, and when they had their top lane struggles with Qingtian and Wayward. Wayward particularly, Qingtian, they didn't play in regionals, so they ended up playing with Wayward. That's how that goes. But we have really seen Weibo and the Shy really level up, because in Summer LPL, Weibo were awful around playing topside. They were genuinely very bad. It was one of their biggest weaknesses. So regionally, Weibo have struggled around topside, and then you go to the regional qualifiers, and then suddenly they kick that up a notch because they knew that was how they were losing a lot of games. The Shy has flash, has ult. He's probably just dead anyway, because there's like 3 people topside. Yeah. So, Lee Sin now has 2 kills. In this game as well, when you have such a mobile, aggressive jungler with setup available for you, you have the first item spike, Everfrost for Faker. Owner is going to do a hell of a lot of damage. And in fact, this is a big moment here, because, yeah, I remember this. I really want to play... You know what? I'm going to play this in slow motion. I'm just going to turn off the voices for this just so we don't hear... Actually, you know what? Drunk slow casters are very fun because you hear them on half speed. They just feel like they've been on a night out. So what's happening here? Let's have a look at the map. So you have teleport from Faker if this gets out of hand. The Shy's dead, so he can't... And he doesn't have teleport anyway. So top lane's not going to be a factor. Guma's not in position to save Carrier. That's quite big here, because if he's in range for the Kalista ult, maybe you view the situation a little bit differently. And we just said you have 2 kills on Owner. He hasn't gone back and spent the gold for the second one. Guma. But one of the big things is we talked about the range advantage, right? The range advantage applies here. You don't have the center ult, but you do have heal. That's important to note as well. But you also have your Q, which can go through. So if you fire your Q at the right angle, it's probably going to be like, what, this distance right now with 2 range upgrades, something like that. So Light can still contribute to this play. So T1, trying to play their ranges a bit more. Drags back with the W safeguard from Lee Sin. Pulls him out of position. So you have the Shock Blast, which is half of the long range combo. I want to see what Light does here. Oh, that's a really... quick cancel there. Yeah. That is insane. Does he cancel the Q or does he just... Yes, he does. He cancels the Q. The mark is still on him, but the Q's cancelled. Oh, way. Yeah. Arguably what Owner should have done is flash for an auto and then try and complete the Q, but... What does Faker do here, actually? So Faker doesn't have his ult still. That's fine. But yeah, so T1, they, yeah. So Weibo's getting an XQ here? XQ. Okay, right. Yeah, that's fair.
Weibo has just had such an incredible journey as a player. This guy first starting on V5, came in with them, played with BLG, and since...
So honestly, well played by Owner to drag Weibo out of position. A couple of times now, this has come down to literal single auto trades, though. It's been really, really close. Good flash away as well from Weibo to make sure that the bailout didn't come through. Very dangerous to be fighting in these 2v2s and 3v3s, though. One of the things that we highlighted a little earlier was, hey, maybe Weibo shouldn't be playing in 2v2s and 3v3s, because they should arguably lose that. But they're working pretty well with it right now.
Because Chris was right behind him, but well played on the sidestep nonetheless. T1 though continually going towards these objectives. They know they need to keep pushing the pace, and Weibo here.
Also worth noting again, actually, you know what? I'm going to highlight this again. I'm going to highlight. So we've got the second Herald. We'll talk about that after this point. I really want to see what happens here again. So Faker actually ends up teleporting into the river here as well. Like, Faker knows his role within this team. He has the first item in Everfrost as well. He doesn't have his ult to commit very hard to this play. But again, he's in the right place at the right time. He's been comboing up well with the team fairly well at this point. Yeah, the flash charm under turret didn't end up working out this time in this early game, but it's the right play to make. One thing which I'm going to really stress about this game is that Faker often makes the right decision. It's just the skill shots which go a bit awry. So they get the second... Ah, man. So now you've forced out another defensive tool from Light. So they get Herald. They force out the flash, just as the cast is saying as well. T1 about to get onto Soul Point as well. First item's coming in across the board. So we're getting towards one item spike, which means that Weibo have a lot more to work with than they did previously. One item spike is still within T1's power spike, though. One item spike for this entire team is very, very strong. Kraken Slayer on Yone. The entire top side is just very, very strong at this point in the game. So Weibo still shouldn't be looking for gung-ho fights. And this is where things start to... I seem to remember at this point, Weibo getting really just rolled in terms of dragon setups. So what you're gonna be facing a couple of problems here, right? Because you still have the Callista pushing in here. You have the Herald, which means that you're losing mid-prior. And with Herald onto mid-turret, you're losing mid-turret for free here. Pretty much. You don't have much of a say about that. If you're losing mid-prior, you need to be understanding that Dragon is going to be very, very difficult. You're starting to get some poke in. And if this fight takes long enough around Dragon, and you get 2 or 3 shot blasts on target, on someone like Faker, or on someone like Guma, then yeah, maybe you can fight this. But you can't just assume you're going to be able to get those. You need to set yourself in position to get as much poke as you can. Again, Light trying to get something down there as well. Luckily, T1 doesn't have any sustain. Otherwise, this fight becomes, you know, obviously completely ass. So someone like Faker doesn't have sustain. This is really good from Faker. So Faker has flash, he has ult, he has Everfrost. I really like the way that he's positioning right here. You have Crisp and Light out of position. They can't influence this fight besides the center ult. So Faker could target any one of these people, and Zeus could be teleporting in to Summer and Bot River. And this is the right play to work with. Again, just really want to highlight that Faker knows his role within the team, gets a charm here. He's not over-committing towards it. But like, he's just putting himself into position to make sure that Weibo can't freely walk into River. Because if T1 gets to kind of stop Weibo from entering River without taking chunks, and again, they're just contesting this as best they can. That means that they can look for a really good fight. And they're just trying to make sure that Weibo can't just sit and play things slow and roll through multiple skill rotations. Okay. That's really unfortunate. How the heck did he miss that? Oh, there's water walking. That's first game nerves. That's first game nerves, man. Charm. Everfrost. So they forced the Devour early. So Devour is now down. They've used the Callista ultimate. But they lose Ahri ultimate in response as well. Okay, so that's obviously a bit of an oopsie by Carrier. But you can see the way that Tier 1 are approaching these fights. They're trying to separate the fight and make sure that Weibo... you know what? This is actually worth talking about as well. So, we were talking about range advantages, right? Again, it's been a lot of what we're talking about. How do you use your range advantage when... I mean, at this point, like... Xiaohu at this point is just on the edge of extended shock blast range. It's actually quite easy to dodge out of that. Xiaohu with just one extended shock... accelerated shock blast at this point is not going to be able to influence... this side of the skirmish well enough. You're not going to be able to one-shot someone. So T1 are doing a really good job of making sure that they're splitting up the team by, or rather they're picking someone who's so isolated that the range advantage never comes into it as well. The only thing which can influence this at this point is obviously the center ultimate if they hit their CC. Because if they end up hitting their CC, like, the Weiwei's over here. He's actually very out of position. I think Weiwei's had a great early game, but this is very, very dangerous. And luckily he gets the Maokai ult in time. And we see what happens afterwards. So, range advantage is really quite an oversimplified term. You actually need to be in position to use your range advantage too. People need to be in range of their skills, even if they're longer range. It's easier to be in position, because you have that range to play with. It gives you a larger zone of control. Oh my god, that's nuts. And again, and you know what? Exactly the same thing happens. Light can't influence this. The Shy's not in position to do anything. His active combat range is like here, right? Weibo doesn't have his ultimate. He can't fire anything in as well. T1, they've basically looked at Weibo's composition and say, all right, bet your range advantage will not be in range. And they finally find themselves a really good pick here. And Xiaohu gets phase rush and he ends up getting out. Faker misses the flash charm, which has been a bit of a shame, but like T1, the way that they're approaching these range advantages is correct, even if the execution is off. And again, look at this. Half of the team is over here. Xiaohu can't influence this. You don't have your Devour is on, it's available now, but they can't influence this. They're a whole 2 screens away. And even though Zeus is coming in from, he's coming in from blue side jungle pretty much, because you have like next round of skill rotations coming up here, and you have like W movement speed. Let me just clear off the screen again, actually. But like, Xiaohu is not entering this fight again. He doesn't have teleport. Crisp is not getting back into position. These two are out of the fight. If you have to rotate back, if you have to escape back this way as Weibo, you are getting absolutely monstered. So T1 have then basically 3 picks, one after another, and with the CC in here as well, they get the extra ability to gap close to you. But by choosing 3 different picks time after time, they've made sure that Weibo cannot play around their range advantage. This whole composition about Weibo is about keeping T1 at arm's length and making sure that they can't close the distance well enough for them to kind of close down their longer range carries. T1 have looked at that and they found multiple fights back to back where they can find part of this composition out of position for Weibo, and they can close them down. It's really actually quite an impressive phase of play, despite the fact that the first 2 attempts don't work out. They actually flub their first 2 attempts, but they're playing quite well in regards to looking for the opportunities, even if the skill shots aren't completely there. I mean, I disagree that this play doesn't even matter, because Xiaohu's out of the fight. So I disagree with that play not mattering. And again, it's just pulling apart. It's a tug of war between 2 sides of this fight where Weibo can't use their range advantage. Half of their range advantage has had to flee back towards mid-turret. Herald takes that turret anyway. You've got the other half of it trying to stop Soul Point coming in for free. I think Weibo, they got very flustered about trying to balance out mid lane turret being taken by Herald and then also Dragon as well. And so they end up taking the Dragon, but at what cost, pretty much. And now you're at the point where the gold advantage has exploded for T1. They have second Herald, which took out that mid lane turret. Got a whole load of kills as well on top of that too, so they're finally into the kill advantage. And we're starting to see the problems of side lane as well, because Zeus has Hullbreaker. He is very happy taking on anyone on the map. Oh yeah, this is the triple TP, because you have Tom Kench who can come in for a Devour. This game goes a long way in showing T1's strategies, right? Because even here, this play doesn't work out particularly well for T1. You know, they use 2 ultimates on bot side. But it's still the right play to make. There is something to be said about making the right play badly still being pretty okay, right? So they end up... That was so close, man. If that knockup lands, like, that could potentially turn the game, by the way. This is actually the perfect play from Weibo to respond. As much as we just talked about bot side, T1 having really good strategy in terms of choosing the right play. If Guma dies here, Baron has just come up. And you don't have the best Baron damage in the world, but if you take out the Kalista without having the Lee Sin and Yone ults on the other side, that's pretty much Baron for free. You have another tank to tank up this Baron as well. If that happened. So this is Weibo. This is actually a game-winning opportunity for Weibo. This is a game-winning opportunity. This is so close, man. Wait, what the heck did... Hang on, sorry. What did that happen? I was just wondering where it highlighted the title. Really good from Faker. Really good. Because again, think T1 know at this point, hang on, this is a problem. Multiple flashes committed. Faker gets into the right point, though. Gets a charm onto Light. The Devour is up and available, but actually, is it available? Normally, it has the symbol next to it. Maybe it's not available for Crisp, actually. Because normally you have the symbol for Devour next to your nameplate. Normally, it's there if it's available. Huh. So really good teleport from Zeus, who has flash, he doesn't have ult. Faker has such a game-saving play here. This is a game-saving play. Because if you have the extra burst onto Guma coming in from an auto Q tap from Light, and then also Crisp getting an auto Q as well, Guma dies. Yes, the hostile takeover comes through, but you're not going to get the takedown at the other point to kind of get the reset at that point. Like, legitimately, this is a game-saving play. Also, Faker just misses out on a Q2 there. If he actually gets the max range Q, he gets the kill onto Weibo and he gets another reset. And he survives here. Yeah, Faker actually misses out on getting like 3 kills here. That's really sad. But that's a game-saving play. That is a game-saving play. If you lose Guma there and T1 kind of have to look for a kind of a scramble Baron defense, they could legitimately lost that game right there, despite how well this early game had gone. Because getting an AD carry picked off in the mid lane, just as Baron spawns... Exactly. Both of these teams know that Baron's on the table. Weibo could have instantly flashed W the Callisto. Let's have a look at that quickly. Because again, we'll focus on this play a little bit more, because... Could he have made it at this point? Could he have it done at this point? He had cleanse at this point. No, he's looking for the knockup because you can cleanse the CC from Weiwei. I think you're trying to look for the guarantee. And, you know what? Yeah, you're looking for the knockup first from Crisp because you can cleanse out of something else. Could he have played that better? So he's coming out of the shadows here. You can see the little Senna E giving the move speed. Stopping for an auto is probably not the best there. Should Crisp have W flashed? No, he thinks he's in range for that. It's very close. If you cleanse the ult, so it's worth knowing, folks, Maokai ult at melee range is very low amounts of CC. It's like a half a second root. Cleanse also gives you tenacity as well. So if it's, I think it's been like 60%. Actually, let me look at cleanse on wiki. Let's have a look. See here. Cleanse. 65% tenacity after that point. 65% tenacity. So let's have a look at Maokai. What's Maokai's melee range ult duration? Can we see your abilities, please? Thank you. Abilities. What do you mean this? Can I look at League of Legends, please? Where are you? Maokai wiki. Maokai, League of Legends, thank you. Because they have to put it in all the different game modes now as well. Okay, so, Nature's Grasp. Your first root is 0.8 seconds. 65% off of that is like, what? 0.3 seconds of a root. You would have 0.3 seconds of a root. So that wouldn't have worked. So you're looking for the knockup to land because you can't cleanse the knockup. That is so close. I actually think Weibo is correct to not look for the hard force and hope that Crisp lands it. Maybe he could have made that a little easier if he had looked for an extra bit of threat onto Guma. Yeah, this is the game-defining play at this point. Because Weibo genuinely could have won the game with this pick. This is not as one-sided a game as potentially we can look back at now thinking about this. Weibo's had a really good game, folks. He survives a couple of picks on from Owner. He wins the topside 2v2 against a very strong topside 2v2 as well. Legitimately, Weibo could have won this game for Weibo. T1 still looked for their plays in the right way. I think the way that they've played 5v5s has been better than I thought they would as well. Oh, if that pick happens, man, that is game-changing. Cleanse on the root, on the slow rather from Time Kench Q. Faker buys a lot of space with his Charm and Everfrost. Same with the Renata ults. Does the Senna ult not go through? Ah, the Senna ult doesn't go through. Oof. That could have killed Guma. I don't think that stops them taking Baron because you still have Yone and Lee Sin who are pretty good at killing Baron. Ooh. I think in general, Chronicler's right there, talking about how Senna feels impossible to deal with in a front to back, particularly when you have the extra tank front line, which you lane with Senna. If you're picking someone like the Tahm Kench or a Swain or whatever else is going to be in that lane. But in this game, there are so many ways to reach the Senna. Yeah. Is it an overforce after Kalista gets out? You know what? We're going to actually look through this again, then. We're going to look through this again. Is an overforce. At what point is this an overforce? Do they have any info on Faker? Actually, when does Faker see anything here? Actually, I want to see how Faker moves here. Because Faker's moving towards top side. When does he move towards mid? Because he gets here pretty quick. As soon as they're on the screen, look at this. Look at what happens in mid lane, in top lane here. On the minimap. Let's, I'm going to slow this down to 0.5 speed. Look at this. What time does he start moving? Here. He starts moving right here. So basically, like a second or two after they walk onto screen, he's already moving back towards mid lane. That is such a quick response from Faker, actually. Cloud Rift helps a lot here too, because it gives him like an extra half second to work with. If he's out of position, he can still ult in. He still has the Ahri ult. So he would have been fine, actually. Faker was well in time for this play. Yeah, and as we said, Faker misplays that next bit as well. And I've not talked about the Overforce, have I? When is this an Overforce? When is this an Overforce? They still have the red buff slow on. I think... they've already committed Bashai to this play as well. Yeah, I think this is probably the Overforce. As soon as that flash gear is pressed, folks, it's an Overforce. But I think, look, I can't blame Weibo from saying, look, let's just try and outplay this. Because if they get this fight, they potentially get Baron in the game. Because Guma's out of position. They get so much good damage onto Guma. Guma so nearly dies. Oh well. And then Baron happens, we go through the replay, and we get back into things after this point. Send you a DM as a suggestion with what? I saw your thing in the mod chat with about the new champion, which I will talk about. Yeah, I already saw that one. Yeah, I saw that was like 20 minutes ago. So. I mean, true, but if Faker plays it better, they also still die. No, I mean, Faker already does the important thing in stopping the damage at the start of the fight, right? That's actually the key play. The cleanup at the end, sure, he dies for it. It's a bit unfortunate that Aatrox has been going to the gym. His booty is a little smaller than it used to be. Surely, that's it, right? Oof. So Crisp is out of range to Devour. He has no flash as well. Crisp gets the Devour anyway. I mean, likely that Devour's coming in anyway. It's just a bit of an awkward moment. I actually think Faker's had a good game so far. He's missed like that charm and then the flash charm at the start, which is flash for flash, so whatever really. That's less of a miss, more of a dodge. No, Aatrox has just been slimming down. He's not skipping leg day. He's working hard on leg day to burn those calories. And now you have Infedge on Zeus, who's absolutely slaughtering the semifinals now. Really worth noting again that Zeus has been a huge part of the engage threat onto a lot of this. I know we haven't focused on Zeus that much. Like, it's really worth noting around the Dragon fight where it was, you know, the pulling apart the range advantage. Zeus is one that finally landed the engage. That was the key moment. He gets onto the backline here in this fight as well, which is a huge point. He's been a huge threat in terms of winning lane and then being a side lane threat as well. Like, this Yone is now a huge problem for Weibo. I think that the rest of the team's played well. Yone's champion and the situation that that he is in the game here as Zeus is a big problem for Weibo now.
Not exactly the end of the world, but it's all just more money here for the coffers of T1. These shock blasts starting to land a little bit. Lands onto Faker there, but they're going to need more of those if they want to stop the pressure.
The shock blasts do hurt, but T1 is just playing so intelligently.
Yeah, I mean, Xiaohu's trying his best. This is what do you do here as a Jace? I think that actually in a lot of ways, the Weibo players are not necessarily playing badly here. I think the overforce on Tagumu is one thing. I think around the Dragon fight where they ended up losing a lot as well, that was a bit of desperation. But, you know, I can understand why they're in this position. I think a lot of this is because they picked 3 losing lanes, they got counterpicked in top lane, they tried to focus on Faker's champion pool, and he's actually been very effective on this Ahri, even though he's missed a couple of those the charms, he's actually been very effective. Like, this for me feels like a huge draft oversight from Weibo to get both solo lanes countered and get a... Or rather, well, I mean, it's not a counter in mid lane, but I think it's a huge oversight to have 3 losing lanes and an aggressive jungler locked into you. That's so bad. The Green Slash, Grandazol, thanks for the follows, I appreciate it. Zeus really makes me want to... First time Yone in ranks. Yeah, maybe don't do that in my games, but good luck in your ranked journey.
Exactly, you know you win the 4v4 and you win the 1v1, so as long as you have eyes on Weibo, you are chilling. You just have to make sure you're not getting poked out too heavily.
So let's have a look at how T1 are dealing with this Baron push as well now, because again, really worth noting, at this point, you have the 3 items on Yone. How the hell are you meant to deal with that as the Aatrox? Aatrox just has nothing he can say about that. He's also 3 levels down. This guy is out of the game. The Shy can do legitimately nothing. He played well in the early 2v2s to make sure that he didn't fall behind, but the Shy has been a passenger in this game. There is nothing that the Shy can do here. Do you think Yone could be played into Rumble? I wouldn't want to do that. I think that Rumble's just more useful, and I think that Rumble can win those lanes as well. I think Yone's pretty okay, but I just think that Rumble's too good of a champion in the bigger fights right now, so it gets very, very scary. From what I've heard, basically nothing works into Rumble at a pro level, so. Boss, you don't play ranked. I do sometimes, but just not this year. 3 items coming in from T1, huge gold advantage, nearing up towards, you know, 9k. They are so far ahead of the curve right now. And yeah, I mean, even Gumayusi's not really had that much to do this game, folks. He's really not had much to do. He won his lane, he kept down Weibo's bot lane, which is what he meant to do, and he survived the one big fight in the game where he was put under pressure, and he outplayed that kite back really, really well. This has not been a draft for the Kalista to be a real carry. Do you think T1 will keep this roster next year? From everything that we've heard, they said that they're going into contract negotiations and that they would like to, but it is very hard to keep world champion rosters together, even for a team like T1. So I would say that there is a high chance that 1 or more members leave, but I think the players themselves would like to stay if they're given the chance, and contracts work out that way. That's the way that typically worlds end up working, worlds winning rosters. I'd like to see this roster run it back. Apparently LCK does have a rule where if you have the same roster for like 3 years, you get to increase your salary cap. So I think LCK is really pandering towards LCK in terms of like their veteran clause, where if a player's been on the team for like such a long time, then they get salary cap reductions. So yeah, maybe that works out. But we'll see. I'd really like to. I think it's very rare to see a world-class roster stay together for even 2 years. So seeing it for 3 would be incredibly special. Hopefully they will. I hope they do. As much as I've had my issues with this roster, I love the style of League of Legends that they play, even though they've had issues being clinical with it before. And we've seen that through, you know, a lot of regional this year. Good route. You know, Weiwei's really trying there. What's happening here with Weiwei, actually? What's he trying? So he's got saplings. He's trying to... So this is the problem against big Baron pushes. And then obviously the Baron's fallen off at this point, right? You do have the map hacks of being able to see in bushes through saplings. So the saplings are a good kind of extra warding pattern here. Weiwei's trying to use them. Gets caught out by a Lee Sin Q. That's obviously... He's 3 levels down, which is a pain in the ass. Big damage from T1. You just about make it out with the Devour. It's so dangerous even looking for saplings, man. What? If you can't even walk up for saplings to throw into a bush, you're having a very bad time. So now T1 are on, they've got Dragon, which would be Soul for them in a couple of seconds.
Looking for that angle is
Oh, I think they might know.
And yeah, I mean, this is great. Look at the minimap here from observers, right? You have no wards. You have one blue trinket on Baron, which, let's be honest, if T1 go there, there's not much you can say about that anyway. You've just used 3 ults. So now if T1 want to go somewhere on the map, like, Weibo are so boned. Because what do? I don't think you can allow Baron to go down. Maybe you can look to get some vision if they go towards... You can't rush Baron if they go Dragon. But if you get vision around Baron, while T1 maybe go to try and secure Soul, maybe you can get yourself into a position where you can 5v5 for Baron to get yourself back into the game. Are you going live with Rich later? I didn't have any plans to. I've not, so I don't believe that's something which I'm involved in. So so no, not this time. Which is absolutely fine. I'm not there to take over their show completely. That comes later. Okay, so T1 instead make a really intelligent play. They say, well, Yone can just take the dragon anyway. He has Hullbreaker. He has an incredible amount of DPS. Why don't we take both objectives at once? You still have these 3 ultimates down. So what do Weibo do now? They were hoping that maybe T1 go towards dragon and they leave some gaps topside to get towards some vision. T1 are really just putting into the sword though and saying, no, you're not going to get control on either side of the map. Weibo realize, oh, bugger, we don't have any vision. We don't have any ability to do anything about this. They teleport to a counter minion. Ooh. What Faker's trying to do, and again, this is actually a pretty good play decision-making wise from Faker. There's still no Devour, there's still no Center Ult, there's a heal. But if Faker ends up connecting a Charm or Everfrost onto Xiaohu, then you see that you've got Renata just behind them, and you have the Kalista just behind them too. That's enough CC for maybe a flash Q or something like that from Guma, and immediately with a Baron buff you end the game. How close to this get? Let's talk about how close to this get. So Xiaohu immediately pops his Ghostblade. That's a very close dodge there. That's a bit unfortunate. And then he basically realizes, oh, okay, I can't actually stay here now because if I get Marco doubled, then I die. And you can't. And also at this point, once you've used the charm, you can't cancel the Jace Q either, so you would die at that point if he ends up landing that damage. Okay, so ults are back up. They're still flying in with the right minions, though. But again, like, Faker's choosing the right moment to make that play, but messes up the execution of it. That's happened a couple of times this game. He's also, you know, nailed the execution on a couple of them. I don't think it's been bad on that. I think particularly the... Bloody hell, what happened to the show? Oh, he just... Wow, he just all-ins him, huh? He doesn't even use his E. He has 4 items to 2, man. But, like, what can the Shy do? Oof. Yeah. So, Weibo, they never really got a chance to front to back. They never got a chance to front to back. T1 smashed lanes too hard. T1 looked for picks in very, very effective ways. This was a hell of a game from T1 on the decision-making side of things. Now, they got punished in a couple of the execution attempts of their decision-making things, but actually, strategically, this game was really impressive from T1. They saw the range advantage, but they countered it by taking fights on multiple sides and moving very quickly, using their mobility advantage to say, well, we'll look for someone on one side of the fight. Okay, that didn't work. Let's look on the other side as they retreat a little too far. They did a really good job of making sure that Weibo could never use a range advantage, because when they picked someone out, they were out of range of the rest of their team. They were really good at that. So I think Weibo had some positioning errors. I think they drafted quite poorly. They drafted far too many losing lanes, especially into the mid game. They had no side lane options, and that was a big issue. So T1, I mean, Zeus absolutely popped off. I think he's probably MVP of game 1. Shoutouts though to Faker, even though he missed a lot of charms, he was looking for the right plays. And I think between Zeus, Owner, and Faker, all looking for those picks just away from the rest of the team from Weibo, they really showed that they knew that they're on the same page. It's very rare that you see teams being on the same page like that so often. T1 used to be more focused on Herald, but this tournament they took 85% of dragons in the game in Worlds. What do you think about the style change? A lot of that is about picking winning bot lanes. If you win bot lane, you get dragons, and you just tend to be in a position to take those more. So a lot of it is just carrier's champion pool opening up bot lane dominance. A lot of it's about that. A lot of it is about that. Okay, folks. I'm gonna give you all a brain break.
What has been his comfort?
Get back into it.
Looked fantastic for Shehu over the course of summer.
Live Nymaera reaction.
He actually looked really good in this game, even if he couldn't get it across the finish.
Okay, folks. Let's get into game 2. Let's get into this.
Game one. Exactly right.
So this is after draft, so we need to go back to the start of draft and go through things again. So, Weibo got absolutely hammered in draft in game 1. So let's have a look about how they respond in game 2. One of the big things that we were worried about was how it felt like they chose blue side, but they didn't have good blind picks. They blind picked both of their solo lanes. They got some value out of the Jace, but they got no value out of the Aatrox. That meant that the Shy, who had been a big pressure point for them previously in this world, couldn't function in the way that he wanted to. So let's get right back into this, and let's see what they respond with. So they have chosen to stay on blue side. They don't ban the Silas this time. No Silas ban. How about it typing? No Silas ban. Setting up for Kalista. Because this Ashe typically shuts down Kalista. Because the slows and auto attack slows Kalista's attack speed, it means that Kalista has a hard time playing as that champion. I'm so surprised that Weibo didn't choose red side. Exactly the same bans coming in from T1. Exactly the same ones. All these are is super solid blind picks. These bans open up counters. This is just such good red side from T1. T1 have ruined red side this tournament, man. Like red side for T1 is such a powerful thing. So they do end up getting the Kalista. They end up picking the Kalista, and the big things which Kalista normally struggles with is the Orianna and the Ashe. So both of those have been banned out. So what are you seeing here from Goomer and Carrier now? Do you go? You could go Varus. You could go Varus potentially. That's a pretty good answer to them. Because typically T1 have answered lane dominance with even more lane dominance. That's been their answer this tournament, and on the whole, they've won with that. Particularly since they got into bracket stage anyway. And they go for the Renata, which is absolutely fine. So you separate the Kalista Renata. I would potentially be looking at Varus Renata at this point. It's a very strong laning phase. Your E is Varus with the slow on it. Again, similar issues for the Kalista as Ashe's auto attacks in the W. I remember seeing this game being locked in live. And I was like, well, the problem with something like Draven is if you lock it in here, there's still a ton of champions which just make your life absolutely unplayable. But what the bonus of Draven is Draven can't, or rather Kalista can't, I'm so bad at typing, man. Can't dodge an axe to the head. This is the big thing, folks. You can't hop out of Draven autos. Draven has always been good into Kalista because of this reason. Anything with point and click damage or majority point and click damage tends to do quite well into Kalista as well. So we see the hover of the center here again, and you basically say, all right, okay. What you're looking at here is Weibo trying to just have presence in bot lane laning phase. You're just really hoping that they can be stable in bot side, have laning presence, and make sure that T1 don't run over the bot side of the map. Because if this Draven starts popping off, it is so nasty. Now, there are some other things you can look towards here as well. So what deals with Draven? What deals with Draven? Now, actually, one of the best answers into Draven is Talia. Talia is really, really good because as soon as Talia puts down her E, the Unraveled Earth, which I always forget the name. Actually, I always remember that name. I've got a couple of friends who forget the name of that ability, so we have a running joke about just making sure I say that name as clearly as possible. So Talia, as soon as you put down that Unraveled Earth, the slow onto Draven is enough to stop him from team fighting, and if he ever gets flicked, he dies. He's always within Talia's big kind of damage range. That's a potential there as well. Zone control plus outrange. That's what you're looking to do against the Draven if it's all possible. So we'll put that down. What else is potentially good at that point into the Draven? But that's the big one which I can think of. I genuinely think Xiaohu should be looking at a Draven here. I think not the Draven, looking at the Draven and looking at Talia to counter that Draven. I think that's a really good pick. And now suddenly you have like Maokai in as well. So now you're looking here at this side. What do you pick here as T1? You could either go for something like an early pressure jungle, or you could try and lock in one of your power picks for Zeus before the Shy gets to lock in something as well. Do you top lane double ban top? No, I don't think that Faker only played Ahri in game 1 for the skin. I think it was a good pick, and he played it well. So that's completely fine. He played a good Ahri game on the whole. He missed charms, but he played the game well on the whole. Okay, yeah. Okay, so this is the no Sylas ban thing. So this is where it's really risky here. This was a risk. Maokai was a risk knowing Faker's Sylas is one of his big champs right now. This was a big risk. And they lock it in anyway, because I think what they're trying to say is, well, yes, the Maokai's pretty good versus the Draven, because you throw down the ult and Draven just kind of struggles to team fights. But you know, we'll take that risk. We'll take that risk. We'll say Faker's going to get a really good ult to steal. You know, Maokai ult's good. Senna ult's also very good too, because it's a global ult. But we'll take that risk. That's fine. We can work with that. But what this means is now you have effectively, you have a better Maokai composition than the Weibo does right now. Because you got the Renata ult. You have this, and you have the stolen Maokai ult. T1 have so many ways to take front to backs, which can displace what the Kalista and the Senna want to do. Kalista and Senna want to stand behind their front line and just rain down hell on you by being double AD carries and having a load of range. How do you do that into Renata and then the stolen Maokai ult? This is a great Sylas lock-in on 3. Like, as much as Faker has only played up until this point and then the Ahri game 1, he'd only played 3 champions. He's using them really effectively. We already talked about how, you know, Azir is a strong blind pick. The Orianna is a strong blind pick, and, you know, the Nico's being banned or banned away from a lot from Faker as well. You know, like, he's using those champions really effectively in the positions that they're in. We talked about this in game 1 as well. Like, someone has to blind pick a lot. Faker's chosen some really good blind picks to kind of allow his team to know what his team will play around, whether that's going to be the more like stationary control mage or something like the Orianna, or the Azir, which is a bit more mobile in that sense. But then the Sylas, they've got a lot of good value out of this. Considering how Sylas can be a bit niche right now, not everyone's focusing towards this. This is a great answer in towards the Maokai. So they're banning out the Jace for the Jace Maokai combination. Gonna clear off some of this rank on the screen. Oh, Janino, thanks for the follow, I appreciate it. They're banning out the Cassante as well. Ah, okay. So, why would you ban out Cassante here? This is why. This is why. I think this is telegraphing Aatrox. Is this telegraphing Aatrox? 369 smashed lethality Zeus with it. So they might be worried that so they might be looking for an Aatrox on like 3-4. Sorry, 4-5 rather. On one of these two. I don't know whether they'd save it for last pick. If they're locking it in at this point, they might lock it in on 4 if they're banning this away. And of course, in this case as well, I mean, Cassante is good in this draft in general, but I think that might be an extra factor towards it. because, you know, the Cassante is very good at providing another front line for Weibo to kind of shut the door on the big engage of now the stolen Maokai ult and then the Renata ult as well. The big zone control, like Cassante just sits there, press W, has a fun time with it. And they ban out the Yone as well, so Yone is gone. I think, yeah, I think this is potentially... Okay, so they lock in the Nocturne instead. Which means that maybe that Aatrox point is moot. So now what you're looking for... so this is an issue. So one of the big issues from game one, big issues for Weibo in game one was they lost super hard through sides. With Nocturne locked in, again, that's bad again. Because it doesn't even matter if you don't have the Yone, right? Because the Yone was doing the side laning stuff, basically doing all of his own stunts on his own. Now you have the Nocturne to help you with that. So they lock in the Aatrox again. But this is the problem with blue side. This is the problem with blue side. Blind pick again. This is a blind pick again. Zeus's counters are super strong. This is bad. Like, why are we putting the Shy on blind pick duty, folks? After he's actually had some really good carry performances. What are we doing with this? Maybe you think it's just the Yone, but that's really quite disrespectful. And then we have the Ahri lock-in from Shao, who is 5th pick here, which is... What do I make of this? Because the problem here is, you now look at this Sylas lock-in, and Sylas now has really good Maokai option. So you have really good Maokai ult angle, really good Ahri ult angle. Oops. And you've basically given a really good ult, but what have you done for this? What's the cost of this, right? What this is safe side laning. It's safe side laning, removes an option for Nocturne. That's basically what you're saying. You're also going to have some early priority as well. So what you're hoping for here, what you're hoping for is you're hoping for winning mid-bot. And you're hopefully going to have some side lane presence. So you're hoping that you're going to survive sides. That's what you're really hoping for. Because the Senna Kalista should smash lane. The Aatrox is a bad blind pick, though. This is just such a greedy blind pick. And the Gwen comes in. So now, the Gwen is not going to be teamfight engaged. But, like, how do you survive here when you've been counterpicked again through topside? You have a jungler in the Nocturne, which can impact top lane so much easier than the Maokai can. It's just a real issue. Hey, Sam, what's up?
Just going to say hello. See how the VoD review was going.
It's going good. Going through some of the traps which Weibo set for themselves. I think blue side was a big mistake for them this series. Blue side, I highlighted this a couple of days before the series when they won the coin toss and they picked blue side. Because Faker has had so many impactful blind picks in mid lane, he can pick early in the draft. Bot lane has had some good blind picks as well. And you have a dichotomy of two things. You either have Zeus counterpicking into a lot of top lane champions which have been meta at this tournament, like Aatrox, or I guess we could say the same thing for stuff like Renekton, if that came up as well. He has blind picks prepared for all of the meta top laners right now. No one has stuff to counter Faker's champion pool. So even if you're looking at something like the Ahri into the Sylas, yes, it'll win early lane, but it's not going to win you the game. And then bot lane's champion pool has obviously been the big kick of tier 1 as well. Faker is blind picking, so bot lane and top lane can have very impactful counter picks.
And I think there's something to that as well. That we've had some criticisms of other teams for like defaulting to Renekton R5 counter picks. Not that Renekton is necessarily a bad champion.
That was fine with the JDG game, actually. That was actually fine. That particular instance was not a problem.
As a generic statement. Necessarily a problem. I'm just saying, T1 have got, particularly in top, particularly in bot lanes, players that are able and willing to pull out some pretty hard counters that people haven't seen a huge amount of before. The hard counters, ones they're not sure of. Like Bard comp. Oh hell. Oh my days, double AD carries it back. Oh dear.
I have to say, that was one of the which was one of the big questions for me was Weibo also showed those counters. They actually, of the teams at Worlds, they also had the largest champion pools at Worlds of LPL teams. Because you had Chris playing Heimerdinger, you had him playing Ashe, he played a lot of different stuff. Top lane was playing Graves, too, you know. And 369 had some good 369 had some okay moments, but he wasn't playing those counter picks. The Shy was the one playing the counter picks, so I'm very surprised that this was blue side the entire series from Weibo. Anyway, so let's get into this game of Game 2. I have a couple already. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Give me a heads up.
I'm gonna be doing this myself. If it's okay.
You don't have any
not on me. I don't.
That's
Okay.
I'll leave it to it.
Cool. All right, let's get the camera into the right position. And let's go have some fun with Game 2. So, what are our win conditions for Game 2? What are we looking at for Game 2, folks? So, once again, we have sideline threat. Sideline threat is absolutely huge, plus team fight threat. Because what happens in team fights this game is you have the stolen Maokai ult, you have this guy turning the lights off, and you have this too. So you turn off the lights with the Nocturne, and you have a Maokai ult coming through and a Renata ult. And what that means is that your engage is already sorted. Your engage is good here, folks. You don't need the engage threat from Zeus just on the whole. Who here can stop Gwen popping Ghost, running at them, and tagging them with an ult slow? If these two people get caught with an ult slow, they die. Horribly. Zeus pops ult, he tags them once, effectively they're dead. Maokai ult can't stop it. Maybe you can get Weibo going in for a W, and then like just a Bramble Smash, trying to get Phase Rush and then running away. But that's a big commitment from Weibo to try and stop Zeus. The Shy can do some stuff on a flank. Maybe you can buy the W or the ult from the Shy if he hits a good enough combo, but he needs to be strong to do this. He needs to be strong. And I don't think that that's going to be a very easy thing to manage. So this Gwen is another very good red side pick from T1. T1 are very good at leveraging red side counter pick for Zeus. I have no idea why Weibo thought this was a good idea. The Shy's in another hard spot again. So the Shy is in a really rough spot with this. Huge ults to steal. And then you also have lights out engage combo. So this is some really nasty engage coming in from T1. You do have winning bot lane here. So you have some winning bot lane. You have some breathing room early. So let's have a look at how Weibo use this breathing room. You're really hoping that Weibo can get some advantage somewhere on the map for his lanes to just survive through to a point where they can team fight. You're just really hoping that.
You guys can remember, you can log into your Riot account on lolesports.com and watch Worlds Live to earn.
I think it's because they won all their games versus BLG on blue side, and they won, and T1 won all games against red. I'm sure that there are some false positives from that. But at the end of the day, if you're a coach looking at this series and you look at Zeus' champion pool, you do not play blue side versus T1. You should not do that. Unless you have such powerful blind picks that it doesn't matter. And I think that's the case with Gen G. Gen G were very good with that. Yes, the lights out works with the Maokai ult as well. You're absolutely right.
Is going to be looking for this top towards bot clear because it's going to be this classic Weibo playstyle that we have seen so
Let's clear off this right from the screen. You've seen it by now. You've seen that by now. We've talked about those points. It's just nice to have a visual right aid there. So you're expecting Draven Renata to get pushed under turret, but if anything explodes and then Guma gets a kill, you know, things really start to pop off from that point. Yeah. Lethal tempo stacked up very well early. So Ignite, Heal, Flash traded very early on level 1. So bot lane winning. already got some breathing room. That's nice. It gives Weibo some extra options to maybe contain what T1 want to do around the map early. Not that they have a Lee Sin this time. The Nocturne is not going to be running into your lane at level 3 and killing you. That's not really what he does as a champion. So yeah, Faker going for the first strike. First strike's actually pretty good versus Ahri on the whole, because you get to proc it quite well. If she stops and goes for a Q, it's just really annoying. Faker flashing out a Fog of War to get the E. It's nice. So flash for flash in mid lane, but early on, that very much favors the Sylas, because Sylas can E forwards with a bit more mobility, look for an EW if you're stood way too close, and then obviously things are a big problem after that point. So that's a big win for T1. This is actually well played from Faker, because what Faker does is, let's have a look at how this happens. It's a big thing in mid lane. You do get, oh yeah, and we'll talk about this too. We'll talk about this old rune choice in a little bit, and of course the item starts. Xiaohu has early push in mid lane. Faker has gank setup early game. It's much easier for the Sylas to set up in mid lane than it is for Ahri, because with the Sylas can dash through the wave with the first part of E, which then sets up for your chains a lot easier. So this is Ona on a really good pathing. How does Ona get here? It's just full topside clear into a mid angle. Uses the move speed from the Duskbringer to get himself a little bit closer, so we can look for a flash tether if there is something. Good flash away. But a lot of this comes from Faker using the wave under turret well to set up for a gank. Xiaohu not being connected with Weiwei well enough to make this happen. Both of these junglers are heading from top to bot. It's just that Ona chooses to head through mid because he ends up... this is actually a thing which happens on when you're doing a red quadrant on either side of the map, or you're doing a blue quadrant on either side of the map. So you look at the mini-maps here. I know I'm blotting it out a little bit. If you finish your clear on Raptors as opposed to Wolves, it is so much easier on Raptors to go into river and then go through mid. It's why often we see Raptors to Raptors when we see counter jungling, actually. But if you're on Wolves, you have to go out double the distance to get into river. So this is both junglers kind of like heading top to bot, but because of the geography of the map, it is much easier for Ona to go in towards mid. I don't think Xiaohu respects that Ona has an angle, despite... I think he's basically saying that because I've got the... I've had good auto attack trades, so I'm going to chunk Faker low enough that he can't set up. Obviously, that's not the case here. And T1 just being on a much better timing and a much better position to make something happen of this. So that's really well played from T1 in the early game, and a bit disrespectful from Xiaohu. For me, one of the major differences between T1 of last year and this year is how much they've improved in drafting on both sides. You're absolutely right. I think that T1 were very disrespectful at drafting in the past. I think they've gotten a lot better drafting on the whole. That was a big reason that they ended up winning this Worlds. Now, Ona is just being a gremlin again, one of his favorite things, and making sure that Weiwei doesn't have an easy time. He's eating a load of saplings for it, but who cares? So, let's talk about something else real quick, because we see the Fleet Footwork Longsword Star Ahri. Now, what we see in this game is actually Xiaohu not commit to a full AD Ahri build. What this is, in fact, we can see this if we go down to our rune choices. So there's a couple of things which happen here. Let's go to Xiaohu. Go to runes. You'll notice here, this rune here is part of the key to this. For those of you that remember when we saw Longsword or Cull starts on Caitlyn, this is a similar thing here. Cut down gives you extra damage on people that have more HP than you. Because Sylas is always going Doran's shield in mid lane right now, you do see Doran's ring occasionally, but he's always going for one of those things. It's not like you're going Corrupting Pot. That means that Xiaohu has a permanent damage up in mid lane because you get no HP from building a longsword, which means that Sylas has more HP than you because he's built Doran's item, and you get the extra damage from that. Sylas tends to win a lot of these matchups by chunking you out. We saw that at level 2 as well. Faker was losing the chunk matchup really, really hard. And he's basically said, look, I don't need Electrocute. I'm not going to be proccing it constantly enough. If I use W and auto attacks, I can bully out the Sylas a lot easier at early levels. That's actually not bad tech, folks. That's not bad. Gwen's going to get some HP through Riftmaker, and then a couple of items later, potentially, and also starts with Doran's too. Ona's going to be going Stridebreaker. The only person that's not building HP is Gumayushi. And I think this is fine, because if you look at your primary targets as Xiaohu, in a 5v5, you're probably hitting frontline. So what this is making good use of one of the rune choices by using Cut Down. And then Fleet Footwork here is obviously just like a nice laning room. What he ends up doing is he goes for Kirchu's Shard. And we'll talk about this a little bit later when it comes up. Kirchu's Shard. So let's have a look at Kirchu's Shard. It is a 700 gold item. That's a really bad color to be drawing on the screen with. But it's a 700 gold item, right? And it sells for 490. So what you're doing is you're losing 210 gold when you sell this item. But that's it, 210 gold. So it's about a kill's worth of gold. What he is doing is saying, right, between this being a really nice proc, it's a very good laning item. It's one of the reasons why LeBlanc was very good with this item as well. And it also synergizing well with energized effects, so that implies that that's also fleet footwork. You're saying that I am going to get more than 210 gold's worth of laning pressure, which means that I can make something work in the early game. That's the bet which you're saying. And you're also saying that between, you know, the procs and the healing, this will be good for the trading patterns. Ahri versus Sylas is a lot of auto attacks. I can very much attest to that. So I actually don't think him buying the Kerchi Shard and then selling it is that bad. In fact, I might even have a think about building it myself, folks, and trying it out. It's a laning pressure item where you lose some gold from selling it back. It's not nearly as bad as buying a full item and selling it. You've been one of the best Ahri players before. That's a high compliment. I'm not sure I agree with that completely. As an Ahri player, what do you think about Faker's Ahri versus Xiaohu's Ahri? I love that you asked that question, and that's relevant to this game as well, so we're going to keep on that topic, actually. Because what Xiaohu is doing here is he's showing what he does, one of the things that he does very well on Ahri. Funnily enough, Faker and Xiaohu do very similar things on Ahri. In game one, we saw that Faker was... Let's talk about it in this regards then. So we have Faker and Xiaohu. Both played Ahri around MSI 2022, when she first came into meta. When she first came into modern pro meta. So what they both did well, they used HP as a resource. They used early pressure, and they used HP as a resource very, very well. Now, the reason why Ahri is a great champion for both of these players is when you think through history of the best initiating, playmaking, and sometimes macro mid laners as well, you're basically thinking of Xiaohu and Faker. Xiaohu, Faker, both great Twisted Fate players. They find themselves into pockets of Fog of War, and they use that Fog of War to get really good engages onto key targets. Xiaohu and Faker used Ahri for that advantage around 2022 very, very well. In fact, I think that Faker and Ahri were the best Everfrost Ahri users out there. I don't like Everfrost on Ahri a lot, but I do think that when you're using it to get multi-man stuns and roots, and getting into charm combos and stuff like that, and being a leader for your team, I think that it's a good item. Faker and Xiaohu get the Everfrost pass from me. Even in games where maybe I think that going more damage is better because there are better damaging items, and we'll even see in this game, Xiaohu doesn't go for the Everfrost. These two really use that initiating play very well. They used it as a way to get early pressure in lane, which is exactly what Xiaohu's doing here, and they use it as a way to continually make plays on the front foot. The thing about Ahri is that once you get kills in a fight too, you get HP regen because the passive comes through, the empowered passive. Gives you big heals, it gives you ult resets too, you get extra ult charges. And it means you can kind of snowball fights very well if you choose a good initial angle. So Faker and Xiaohu, I love that you asked this question, are actually very similar in the way that they play towards this champion too. They do very, very much similar things. You know, at some point, I'd really like to see... I might do a bit of a VoD review of some of their older Ahri games from last year. This is really good from Zeus. Spots the gank early. Make sure that he's out of... so he uses the Ghost early to make sure he's out of QE flash range from the Shy to combo up. And he makes sure that he's not under threat there. Alright, so now we see the Kerchi Shard coming through. And again, it's just really good single auto trades versus Faker. The extra move speed from Fleet Footwork and the healing makes it very nice to chase down for an extra auto if you need, or to a disengage from plays as well. So Fleet Footwork is not a bad rune on Ahri. Funnily enough, when I play AD Ahri, which is obviously not the case here, you've got Longsword start. But when I go for AD Ahri, I really like going for lethal tempo, because you use your W movement speed to kind of keep your lethal tempo stacks up. I think it's a really fun gameplay. But obviously with the Hull Breaker and the Shiv, you kind of want to go Fleet Footwork. Makes your early game a lot easier. Have you ever thought of doing streams looking at the evolution of Ahri in pro play? You know what? Yes, I have, and I might do that over season. We'll see. Because, yeah, Ahri left pro meta for a very long time, but then to see 2 games of it in a Worlds Finals like this, was really fun. I really enjoyed watching these Ahri games. Ahri's Faker's Ahri game was actually very good. Like we said, the decision-making processes he had in the way that he was looking for engages, looking that he was hopping over a wall, making sure that he had teammates in range and he wasn't just left alone as engage, using it as a peel pick as well to make sure that he could be in the right place, land a charm and never frost and then get out was very important too. And you can tell how confused the casters are with this Ahri build too, because I was also very confused. This is not something I've even seen from Ahri mains. I've not seen the Kirchis for laning, selling, and off. But yeah, Xiaohu doesn't get a huge amount out of this. I think this is also testament to Faker. This is a hard laning phase when you get the longsword early with the cut down as well, and you have the Kirchi's shard. This is a strong laning pick from Xiaohu, and it's a good laning build. We've seen Ahri as well. Say that one for a tongue twister 3 times in the mirror. And we have seen lane dominant Ahris and solo queue and stuff like that. Sometimes it's very, very good. But Silas typically can struggle early on. Do you think Ahri is even good in this meta? Once the mages are out, yes. I think once you ban out mages, like Orianna and Victor, I think that Ahri is a lot better. The problem, Ahri struggles when you're against a champion which can chunk you out so hard that you can't fight back. Let's have a look at this from... The Shy actually plays this really well. The first bit of this he plays really well. Okay, so... How does this top lane trade start? Do we get to see all of it? Okay, so we see ults popped here. Observers are a bit late to this trade top. So we get the slows. Conqueror stacked up as well. Oh, the 2-man queue with the World Ender healing gives him so much there. How much XP is he on? He's not on that much XP. Ah, the W comes back up, man. Oh. That's not good. I think you can even wait for Zeus to like go under turret and trade 1-for-1, right? Or can you? Oh no, he's gonna survive 2 turret shots. Ah, that's such a big mistake by the Shy, man. I think Ahri is good into Azir. I don't think Ahri is good into Orianna. I think Victor's a hard matchup too. Nico can be quite hard early on in lane, but you can do fine in team fights. So you can survive against Nico, it's just a bit harder. I mean, the healing from the Q2, man, he does a really good job here. It's just, why do you walk up after this point? I mean, that's so greedy, man. That's a mess. And yeah, Chronicler's right. The first ult ends up being a success there. Zez just saved his W there, and the Shy didn't expect him to have it after the dive. You've got to know. I mean, the most important thing about laning against Gwen is knowing the W cooldown. This is bad from the Shy, though. Bad play top. And then he doesn't have... This is classic Weibo from regionals. Or rather, not regional qualifiers, but from their region. The way that LPL kind of like punished Weibo was the Shy would like look where every single other member of Weibo is. You have no teleport on your Ahri, so they're not coming to help you, and every single other person is around Herald on topside. What are you doing here? If you're cross-mapping against a Draven, you never want to be in a vulnerable place. Even if you have to drop extra minions, doing this against a Draven is absolutely unforgivable. I thought game 1 was not the Shy's fault. You're into a counter matchup, you played well around the 2v2s early, it wasn't his fault. He wasn't the person giving up the big team fight impact to Zeus. Game 2 here, though, between the blunder of not tracking the Gwen W, and then dying towards this bot side turret here as well, that is... utterly unforgivable, actually. What is this? How much extra gold do you give over here? What are you doing? How much is this? 438 plus an extra 150. So that's an extra 600 gold gone over, folks. That is a 600 gold lead, like gone over. You also then lose. Well, it's more than that because you're losing a plate. I mean, you're losing the plate in the wave. Sure, that's happening anyway. But the unforced gold given over, which is the kill and the assist going over, is 600 gold near enough, just under 600 gold. Whenever you cross map, whenever you choose to like, so I mean, obviously the Kalista and these guys have gone up towards top side, and you've switched these down towards bot side as well. If you are cross mapping against a Draven, you have to take into account his passive. What is happening here? That is such a blunder. That is such a blunder. Game 1 was not the Shy's fault. Game 2 is all on him so far. It is all on him. Now, so Weibo need to punish Zeus. If you don't take a load of gold out of Zeus' pocket right now, this game is unplayable. So they flash forward, they look for the counter. How much do they get out of this? So they get the run down. Zeus gets some extra gold here from the wave, but it's not that much. Stolen Maokai ult does something. It's not enough, though. Oh my god, he actually gets the execute. So, he still dies, he still loses a wave. So the top lane matchup, because you've been put in the shitter now as the Shy. The top lane matchup is you get something back from it because theirs is not collecting the rest of that wave top. But that is still such a mistake. Reckless is joining LCK Academy. You know what? We'll talk about that in a bit, but I want to keep this about... He's joining T1 challenges? That's absolutely insane. Wow, that's insane. We'll talk about that. Oh my god, are you telling me that Reckless is going to learn support from Carrier if Carrier stays? That is so funny. That is so cool. I really like that. It's really cool. I don't know if it's good for Reckless. I don't know whether it's good for T1. It's good for marketing. We'll see whether it's actually good for them. But oh my god, if Reckless gets to learn support from Carrier, that is so funny.
All we are is incompetent.
01K, thanks for the follow. I appreciate it. But yeah, I mean, you look at this game now, gold lead kind of explodes out of nowhere. So Weibo have themselves... They have themselves Herald as well to even out some of that gold lead, but you just gave out a huge cash in to Gumayushi. You have had pressure on mid lane, which is fine. Bunch of money, yeah. They'll re-sign now, T1 no. We'll see. We'll see. Talked about this a little bit before, but it's very hard to hold on to a World Championship roster. The financial pressure on World Champions is very, very high from other regions, from NA, from China, from LCK, regardless of, you know, it depends which region wins, obviously, LPL or LCK, but...
I think that both teams have some parts that feel like they scale really well, particularly the Senna, and I think that Maokai remains very high.
Yeah, the Senna does. I think Chronicle is right in saying the Senna scales well in this draft. But, I mean, it does to an extent. The problem is that Senna can never deal with the Gwen. Like, this is hellish. This is kind of hard, but at least you've got teammates to hold on to you, and you have the Kalista ult to save you a little bit. But yeah, I think that the Gwen and the Sylas are hard for the Senna to deal with because they get on top of you and they kill you very, very quickly. It's often more financially beneficial for teams to sell after winning a title like that. Yeah, absolutely. Wisdom has some history of in team environments as well, so very much trust their judgment on that. The psychological pressure for the same roster to win again is often too much. We saw that with T1. When they were losing game 5s, when they lost the game 5 versus JDG, it almost broke them, like, mentally. Carrier, I think, started having, like, panic attacks in game 5s, pretty much. When they won the game 5 versus Gen G at MSI, that was a really, really big moment for them. Okay, so now we have confirmation that's going to be up. So this is a point 2. We're going to quickly go to this. When we see the Phoenix Codex bought by Xiaohu, we know that he is going for the Liandry's. Now, Liandry's is very good versus HP stackers. As we said, full top side gets some HP in their build. You get some HP from this bot lane as well. So you're getting value out of both the Liandry's, giving you basically a Giant Slayer passive, and then also the percent HP burn as well. And also from the Cut Down rune. So this is actually, in terms of RE builds, it's an intriguing one. I think it's good, but I'm not 100. I think Leandri's is Ari's best mythic anyway right now, because it allows you to deal damage without having to commit a full burst combo. You can just kind of tag with a W or a Q, and then look to kind of tag the burn damage down. So what's happening here now? So we've got a dragon started up. Weibo have used the Herald in mid lane. Oh, no, yeah, they... Wait, did they? Yeah, they did, yeah. And we have this big setup here. So Tier 1 are on red side, Weibo on blue side, which means that they have to try and retreat this way or that way if they can help it. Kalista can hop over the wall if it's particularly bad. You don't have flash on Weibo, that's going to be a problem. Who's in position to do anything here? Guma can come up towards bots from bot side. You have teleports from both top laners. How do they approach this fight? So T1 don't want to let this go. They have the rend on the dragon, though. So carry's here already. You have the Ariel stolen. And the hostile takeover doesn't really do much here. Could you have positioned any differently here? No, I think the Mark ult is too good. It's a good defense from Weibo. They don't overcommit towards a play. Get a 3-person route. Owner doesn't pull a trigger either. I think it's completely fine for T1 to do this. They were going to teleport. So the thing is that this is a good thing from Faker. It's a small thing. It doesn't really matter that much. If you were going to teleport back to lane anyway here, like, you have yourself a chance to impact the fight by teleporting down here instead of up towards mid lane. You teleport towards the bot side jungle instead. You're still back in mid lane in time you miss 1 minion for the potential of turning up to a fight. Heard Alice and Monty talking about Ruler potentially wanting to join T1. Yeah, I mean, Ruler should be on a top tier team. He was the best player in the world this year. I mean, he didn't win Worlds, but he was the best player in the world across the entirety of 2023. On 2 different streams, right? At least Owner and Faker are confirmed for the next year. Based on contracts, unless there are buyouts. Remember, if you're in contract, with a contract, it basically just means you have a buyout, folks. It doesn't mean that you are obligated to stay with that team. We see plenty of times where some teams will go towards some of the stuff. Zeus just denying a cannon minion there. That's fun. Again, like, one of the big win conditions for T1 this game, and one which has kind of been opened up by the Shy making 2 big blunders. Like, the Shy cannot survive this combo late game. He can barely survive this person late game. And we'll see that a little bit later into the game, where Zeus and Owner basically cause Weibo a whole lot of issues, where they force Weibo to play quick on the other side of the map to try and compensate from the fact that they just don't have the ability to play around side lanes later on. No one's coming towards top side. You can't teleport here as well. You immediately blow the flash. They blow the center ult as well. That center ult to me it never needed to be thrown here. That is way too late if it was going to be a combat up here. That to me screams lack of communication between the Shy, because the Shy is not cleanly saying, or Crisp is not cleanly hearing, or something to that effect, that I don't need center ult. They're not hearing that. This would fit my mental picture of the Shy being disconnected from the rest of his team when he is on the weak side of the map. The Shy is a black hole of pressure when he goes behind in a game. Like, this guy does not know how to play from behind. He dies over and over. He just loses time and time again. Now, this World, he's been counterpicking a lot to get winning lane matchups, and you see the better sides of the Shy, where he gets to really run over winning matchups. He's really good when he's in a lead, but when he falls behind, this dude just falls apart. And we sadly have to see that in Worlds Finals. To the point where, you know what we're going to do after we go through these games? I'm going to go through all of the players in Worlds Finals to see what the worst KDA is in a World Finals. Because this might be down there in, like, the worst of them, potentially. We'll see. Yeah, calling out Zeus, actually the person to have crumbled in finals before. That's a good point from Atlas. But he's having an incredible series. Also worth noting, folks, last year in the World's Finals, Zeus was very ill, and that really affected his performance. Let's go towards this Herald fight, though. Let's zoom back on this, because it looks like we're actually going to get a fight this time. We have resets coming through. Fake stuff towards top side. He hasn't got his ult available. I don't know what ult he has available right now. What's timed back out? And now we have some really dangerous moments here, right? Kerry's in a great position to get a big ult across here. Faker can potentially dash. He's not going to be able to lead with a Maokai ult, I don't think. I don't think he's stolen that at this point, because his ult's only just coming off of cooldown. So you're going to be turning off the lights. and then you're going to be throwing a whole load of line skill shots down this whole barrel of river. So we get Herald going down. What's Faker doing? What's he stealing? He steals the Markile. And now suddenly, oh my word. Markile's going through here. Yes, you have a Markile going down here. This is so important from Xiaohu. Xiaohu is really trying his best here to make sure that he can deal damage to this clump here so they can't cleanly fly on top of the group of Lights, the Shy, Weibo, and Crisp. So this Markile is already terrifying because if this Markile gets enough value and Xiaohu can buy enough time, then obviously this is nullified. But if they don't manage to do that, then you can have everyone flying onto your double 80 carries and no one can really stop much about it. Where's Zeus in all of this? Zeus is the person here. Yeah, he's the person who's rooted in the middle. So let's have a look how this goes through. Prongs, thanks for the follow. I appreciate it. So you have slow. This is what we were saying in draft as well. The slow from the ult on Gwen is actually very important. It slows Light there to make sure that he can't cleanly dodge out of this Markile as well. So he has to blow that flash. W in a really good spot. Zeus is absolutely slaughtering them. And Zeus gets another ult through them as well. That's like 2 flashes blown basically by Zeus, forcing him into the Markile. I want to see what Xiaohu does on the backside of this actually. So he gets the cleanse out of Goomer, and it means that he goes into the Markile. Xiaohu is never realistically looking for a kill here. Xiaohu does his job. Xiaohu does his job here. He stops Goomer and Carrier getting a clean entry into this fight. Why didn't Counterpick matter in the bin versus the Shy matchups? Because they allowed too many top lane power picks through, which don't have counters. There was Jax, and then there was Rumble. The blind pick of the Aatrox was punished a big amount. There's a good reason why Jax and Rumble are being banned is because they're the safe blind picks. What's happened in this world is that between red side and blue side bans, most of the powerful blind picks are taken off the table. We've seen that on Orianna, we've seen that with Rumble, Jarvan, even in the jungle to an extent. So blue side and Weibo BLG was mainly because those power picks were left open a bit more. But like this was really nasty from T1, finding a multi-pronged engage. Faker has a really good ult steal there. We saw this in game 1 as well. T1, when they look for a fight, they're very much on the same page. They look so in form in regards to the way that they're looking for fights. Even if in game 1 some of those fights were a bit scuffed in their execution, they were looking for the right fights.
T1 is still able to push their lead aggressively and get more gold onto their carries.
And similar to how we saw last game.
So now Weibo are not too far behind in gold. They do have a second Herald as well. If they can get that into mid lane, that potentially helps them open up mid lane, which allows them to go towards objectives. But their side lanes are in a real dire state at this point. So we have now transitioned over to, we have sold the Kerchies Shard, we have the Liandry's and Boots built up. So this is, I agree with the cooldown Boots here if the premise is surviving side lanes. What you want to be doing is making sure that between cooldown Boots and your Liandry's, which of course also gives you some CDR from your Mythic passive as well when you build up towards secondary legendary items and stuff like that, your ult is going to be on a very low cooldown. I do just want to check something really quickly, because I think that Ultimate Hunter on Ahri is a very important thing to get. In this game, he doesn't have Ultimate Hunter, so he's not going to have the extra cooldown reduction on his ult. Not that it would matter at this point, because he doesn't have any kills or assists that much. He'd only have an extra 6. But yeah, Xiaohu's happy to just blow his ult now to be in safety. Bit of a shit center ult again from Crisp. He didn't need to throw that one out. But yeah.
Right? In 25 seconds till the Drake spawns, and now Crisp doesn't have his ultimate, and neither does Xiaohu. It's gonna be
Yeah,
really
Xiaohu doesn't have his ult, but he's at rank 2. He has a load of cooldown reduction from Boots and then Liandry's. He's fine. Like, he's very much okay buying a gank bot lane. He would have loved to get more from that. He would love to get a ghost ult or ult from Zeus or an ult from Owner as well. Okay, so they do use the Herald to take down free mid lane turret. This has been the pro standard in 2023. We'll see what happens, because it looks like Herald is actually changing a bit in 2024 with the preseason changes that we're seeing. But right now, if you're winning a side lane already, you don't want to be throwing things into top lane. It's far more valuable to chuck both Heralds into mid lane turret, because it basically gives you a free mid lane turret to take. Okay, so now we have dragon setups. This is going to be very important because we haven't really seen a full contest at a dragon yet. We saw a little bit around Herald, and we saw how T1 could handle Weibo if Weibo were the first team onto the objective. Now they're the ones which are first onto the objective. So there's a shallow pocket of vision. They've got this and this. But Zeus still very, very scary. Has himself 1.5 items. The Shy has a Dirk and Merc Treads. The Shy is not impactful here. So one of the things that we spoke about earlier this game is that the Shy needs to have... hang on, one sec. I've got to click off of the title in the video because it's... Oh, come on. I've highlighted it again. Oopsies. Can we not do this, please? Cool. There we go. Cool. The Shy needs to have a good game to check Zeus on flanks. If you can get a good enough trade to buy Gwen W or Gwen, hell, even ult and force an all-in turnaround from the Gwen, you have bought your team a lot of safety. But because you're still so far behind, Zeus is not going to be particularly happy. Like, Zeus, yeah, he just eats a Q. He doesn't need to blow his W. Which means that the Shy is... He's not really doing his job in checking Zeus. You have Faker once again on an immaculate flank angle. This is a flangle for the centuries, folks. That's really good. Carrier can flash ult potentially over here too. You will have a Callista ult, which might be able to save Crisp, but this is going to be hellish if they manage to flash over. Because of this control ward, they know that Carrier is off of vision. He is completely A-OK here. And Owner can also pull the lights as well. So this is looking like a disaster setup from Weibo. They haven't managed to check either of the flankers of Faker or Zeus. A lot of that is because the Shy, because of his own mistakes, is so far behind. This is going to be a disaster of a fight. They turn off the lights, it's a flash ult, Faker steals the Ariel, gets right into the backline, Zeus gets onto the backline, he wasn't forced to use his W by the Shy, so he gets to have a completely full fly in here. They completely run over the fight. Like, yeah. That's 2 for 1 right now, 3 for 1, and Dragon afterwards. Like, what did Weibo think was going to happen here? You haven't checked either of the flankers. You haven't checked either of the flankers. And so Faker doesn't even need to use the Maokai ult. Maybe Weibo were baited into thinking, okay, he stole the Maokai ult in the last fight, so he's not going to have it available for this one. Steal Xiaohu's ult instead. Absolutely fine. Fantastic combo between the Renata Nocturne combo. Zeus, like we said, didn't need to blow his W until when he wants to go in. He didn't have to blow it early. So he gets to pop ults. He just ignores the Shy. Like, look at this. He just runs past the Shy. Because of the Shy's blunder in laning phase and then giving the shutdown to Gumayusi and then losing a huge wave on the bot side as well, like, he has completely thrown away his impact this game. Faker also managed to take out Chris as well. Yeah, he misses an E, but that's completely fine. Like, what did Weibo think was happening here? That is a dreadful Dragon setup. To me, when you look at this and you look at them committing, they're funneling into this river here, this ward is not enough. The Shy is not enough to stop Zeus. This is such poor Dragon setup from Weibo. I think in game 1, I think they're a bit outdrafted, don't get me wrong, and I think that they're a bit desperate looking for some of the game-changing plays. This, for me, is just such a blunder, though. Oh, that's a fun thing here, too. Yeah. So look at this. So, Xiaohu doesn't have vision in this bush because of Nocturnal. Now, if Ahri doesn't have vision, Foxfires don't act, and your ult won't target as well. Nocturnal stops Ahri from getting the kill damage onto Ona here. And he kills him afterwards. So that's fun. It doesn't actually change this fight, realistically. Yeah, Xiaohu can't do shit, though. But what are Weibo doing in this fight? What are they doing? Joe Marsh hinted he's going to re-sign Carrier and Zeus a few minutes ago. I mean, they are incredible points. I mean, I think those two are really, really incredible. I think their champion pools won them this world championship. Alongside, like, Faker being able to blind pick to allow them to do that. It's a two-part thing, right? Probably the more special part of that is the champion pools from Zeus and Carrier. But Faker being able to pick a handful of champions and blind pick them in any scenario allowed them to use those counters. They need to re-sign Owner as well. I mean, I'd love them to re-sign all of this team. Because keeping a jungle support duo together is typically very important because that's where a lot of your early game rotations come in for. I could understand them looking for people who have had an individually better year than those two. I think Owner had a good Worlds. I think he's had a bad year on the whole. I think a lot of when T1 was struggling was when Owner was struggling. Like, his Maokai gameplay was just not it this year. I'd be very interested to see if they keep Gumayushi or if they bring in another AD carry if they can't keep him. Because Guma's also been very incredible too, and carrier Guma have been a very good duo. Imagine if we had T1 Deft, man. Imagine if we had T1 Deft. That would actually be really funny too. See Sheep Esports 3. Is this the Reckless one? We've already talked about the Reckless one briefly. Or like, we're focusing on this series for now. We might go to that after. Owner is already signed for the next year. That's true. That's true, actually. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, you're right. You're right. Yeah. I was wondering. I mean, like I said, sometimes you can get buyouts anyway. But, yeah. Heck, does that mean that Guma... Oof. Man, I would love for them to keep this team together. I think this team... These fights this series link back to why I want this team to stay together, right? Because they are all so much on the same page. It's very special seeing a team that understand the objectives and the goals of a team fight. Oh, no, went red smote. Yeah, he did. There was some logic to going either blue or green this game, actually. Blue for getting in position for ults, green for having the tenacity. So what's happening here? This is an important fight now. Because T1 are very far ahead of the game. They're getting toward... They have a second item on Guma who's gone for a collector. You have teleports available in both top laners if something comes of this. Every ultimate is now available besides Light's ultimate right now. Faker has stolen center ult. Gets some damage there. Gets the shield onto everyone but the target who's now been hit by the Maokai ult. He doesn't spell shield anything though. Actually, what? Does he spell shield anything? Did he spell shield? He didn't spell shield a... I'm glad we just went back. So, the reason he doesn't have spell shield is because he just spell shielded a sapling and a brush there. That's the reason he doesn't have it. Green Smite doesn't have tenacity anymore, pretty much. Alright. Gumanoid boots is fine, it's a Draven thing. Draven uses his Blood Rush when he's catching axes to get moves and speed. So he doesn't have spell shield because he used it on a sapling. Good damage from Xiaohu, it's just not enough. Does he not get his W ult here? Does he ult short? Or is he just out of range? He's out of range. So he misses his Leandri's take onto carrier there, which is a bit annoying. Misses the charm. And this is so funny, by the way. So Xiaohu is struggling to get damage down at this point. And I think he can't dash into auto range of Guma. So if he dashes like up to here, Guma just turns around and kills him. He just murders him. And so Xiaohu needs someone else to kind of be already in the fray. So Light pulls his ult around here, and this is really special. So I think Guma baits this in. Even though he is this close to him, he knows that that Crisp is going to be flying in like this direction, maybe predicting a flashback in this angle. So he just flashes to the side here instead, and absolutely breaks his ankles. Like, he knows that they're going for the Kalista ult there. He's like, well, I have flash, I may as well use it. Oh my word, that is so good from Guma. This is all on Gumayushi, by the way, folks. Guma completely breaks Weibo's ankles. Like, put it this way. He knows the mind game here. I don't think he's greeding for this axe. I think he knows that Weibo are looking to punish him picking up his axe. As soon as this thing here is on the ground, like, he knows that Weibo are going to target it because he already sees that the Kalista ult is inbound here, right? And there's a potential of the flash follow-up. So I think Guma goes, all right, bet. You fling yourself at me, I'm going to react in time. He does react in time. Crisp has no flash, dies for free. Ona has his ult as well. He flies into the next target. Gumayushi breaks their ankles, man. When you play against Draven, you want to punish him catching his axes in very quick turnaround CC fights. Guma has flash anyway. He has cleanse if there's a root coming after. He can't cleanse the knockup, of course. But, like, he sees the axe indicator on the floor. He goes, okay, I'm going to flash out of your short range Kalista ult. He does it and completely smashes them. Yeah, so he didn't have the spell shot for this one. But, like, Guma just wrecks them, man. Holy moly. That's a very good sidestep. Now, I actually don't think the side... I think the problem here is... This is another big thing here, right? So if the charm hits onto carrier, and they charm him so he's walking back this direction, I actually don't think that changes the fight. Because if you go onto carrier, then
You still have Owner's ult coming from over here. Gumayusi still kills you. You have to kill the Draven at the start of the fight because of the gold advantage and because of how many items Guma has. That is an insane sidestep. That is an insane flash out. And I think it's a mind game. I think it's a one mind game. Guma and Faker are family. Yes, they are. You're absolutely right. They're like cousins. Yeah, I keep forgetting about that. Owner's had a really good game too. Owner's had a good game too. What's funny about watching this series is the more I watch T1, the less I highlight individual players. I highlight their champion pools, but the special thing about this team is not necessarily individual performances, which they're all great at. That's not something they're bad at, folks. It's, you know, they have a ton of individually great players. The special thing about this team is how on the same page they are constantly. Every time they look for a fight, they're looking to achieve the same thing. And at this Worlds, and I think particularly in Game 1, we saw a lot of this too, right? Where like, oh, we're outranged. Well, they're not actually... We're not outranged if we manage to gap close all together at the same time and then stop the enemy champions from being in position as well. This is such a special team to watch, folks. Like, honestly, you are going to have to really respect this period of time. This period of time getting to watch this T1 roster is actually very special. Even when they've had like some of their flaws, right? I mean, before MSI 2022 last year, I think it was another special time when, again, we saw them being one of the best teams in the world. Actually, before MSI, they probably were the best team in the world. Then Guma had a bit of a nightmare at that MSI. Now, well, look how good he is right now. Like, he had such a nightmare international debut. And then at this Worlds, he has been so superb for them. I think over the entire tournament, Guma and Kerry are their MVPs, I think. Well, maybe Owner as well. Heck, this team's just really good. Yes, Reckless going to T1 Academy, so I have heard. We will react to that in just a little bit, folks. So now, what do you do here as Weibo? You've thrown an awful lot of gold the way of T1. You have so much gold onto the diving members of T1. There is no one who's behind. And now you have stopwatches coming through for T1. We just had the first T1 stopwatch come through for, for both Owner and for Faker. They buy it on the same base. So you have both of them. You have the bailout as well. As we saw in T1 JDG, you can use the stopwatch to even extend the duration of bailout if it comes to it too. So potentially that's a problem. So even if Weibo get themselves a miracle pick, you have to go through a hell of a lot of HP and extra time buying items. Have Cosmic Drive coming in from Ahri. So weirdly, folks, I would have gone for a Lich Bane here second. I think it's very good on Ahri second in this game because you're already auto-attacking a fair amount. You get to use your fleet footwork very well. And then the Lich Bane gives you the extra movement speed that Cosmic Drive also gives you a good amount of AP, and then also gives you some good damage too. So I actually think a sole AP this game. I mean, the Demonic's there. From Makai. I actually think Lich Bane's a good second item for Ahri. It's a build which I've really enjoyed playing recently. Well, for the last year. Didn't Guma do well at both Worlds? So I say he's T1's best player at last Worlds. He was definitely up there. I think Zayas until finals was up there too. I mean, he wasn't great versus 369, but he was great. I think Carrier was exceptional last Worlds. Right, so T1 get themselves 2 Cloud Dragons at this point too. So that gives them some slow resistance, some out of combat movement speed.
Very reserved.
Yeah. They've really matured, you know.
The Baron's been alive for 5 minutes.
Now they give it like 5 minutes.
This is not my T1.
I think because they were near the Baron pit, though, they have remembered.
In my opinion, Faker was their best player in both semis this Worlds and last Worlds. I think, what about this semis versus T1? T1 JDG. Oh, I don't know. I think the bot lane of Goober and Carrier were really good. So if you'd like to see a full VoD review of the semifinals versus JDG, that's in my Twitch VoD reviews. It was about 4 hours long. I did that with Kira as well, who I do some podcasts with occasionally. I guest onto their podcast. So that's on the channel there. This is a big thing that we talked about earlier. Because of the mistakes which the Shy had made earlier in the game, this was going to become an issue at some points. He cannot stand anywhere near turrets, even. Like, if he's stood alone on one side of the map, Zez and Ona pop their ults and Ghost, and they just kill him. And what do you do here as the Shy? You know, what do you do? The early game mistakes and being on a very different page to Weiwei and the rest of his team made this game unplayable for him. He made some individual mistakes under top tower and then on the cross map, which gave the first kill of the game to Gumayusi.
And sooner or later, that kind of debt you put yourself into by putting yourself behind the pace of the game has finally started to get cashed in. Faker is not the youngest player to win Worlds. I think he's the youngest mid laner and then the oldest player. So I don't think he is the youngest player, because he was 17 when he won, right? Oh, he might be. He might be. I'm wondering if Zeka was younger, actually. I can't remember that one exactly. Oh, right. Cyanide and Jaculov are the youngest, yeah. So he's the youngest mid laner, not the youngest overall player, but he is the oldest overall player to win Worlds. This is one of the big problems here as well. Even with HP building against Liandry's and the cut down of the Ahri, there's a stopwatch, there's Merc Treads, there's 2 HP items. Like, Owner is so happy to take these fights just over and over again. He can't get picked at this point. He has a spell shield, he just goes out scot-free. Cyanide won at 16 in Season 1, wow. Okay, so what do we do here now? So you have just chunked out Owner. So what's happening here? So you are getting pushed in top lane, that's pushed in. Mid lane is still under outer turret. Bot lane's in a okay position, it's not under threat. What do you do here? You don't have the ult from the Shy for an immediate teleport in. Where would you even teleport to? I guess you teleport in here or here onto these two, I guess. Let me draw circles on them. Maybe you teleport onto this, maybe teleport onto that. You don't have Flash, though. What else do you have? You have every ult but Senna, so you don't have Senna ult. That's a big one to be missing. And as we said, we don't have the immediate Aatrox ult as well. It's completely blacked out here. You have the same problem of 1 flanker, 2 flanker, going into a corridor versus Nocturne Renata. Can you afford to give this up? Can you fight it? I don't think you can fight this. I think you have to look for a miracle, maybe a flash steal, but that's about it. You can't approach this properly. Nocturne ults, Renata ults. So all they're doing here, I think T1 make the right choice. You secure the Baron. You don't have to very quickly go for this. Now Xerxes gets to be the one to pull the trigger, because his W allows him to do this with impunity. Faker's trying to stop Light from having a big fight. Stopwatch used. Again, that's the luxury defensive item. Guma doing absolutely ungodly things to the enemy team. I'm actually quite surprised he didn't pull his ult there as well. Okay, so let's have a look at how they approach this again, because I actually think this is quite a fun engage from T1. Because I think that T1 do a good job of not immediately going on to when they're in River here. Everfrost and the Q is really good from Faker. Xerxes throws his ult in to the side. So because he's throwing his ult into the side, it forces an early Callista ult. The Shy does absolutely freaking nothing at this point in the game. And Xerxes still has like 2 ult stacks to go here at this point, I think. Yeah, he's still got another ult stack here, right? No, he's just used the last one. What does Faker do here? What does Faker do? I think Faker maybe goes a bit far in this one, but he sees Crisp out of position. Or maybe he's trying to kill Crisp. Maybe he thinks that Crisp will land short, because he doesn't see where the Callista ult goes completely. Hey, Genesis. Yeah, the VoD review's been good. We've been picking up a lot of fun details. I think Faker maybe goes a little too far in that fight, but it's absolutely fine. You have that ability to do that because, again, you have Bailout, and then you had Stopwatch, which was used here. And after the gold you're getting from this Baron push, you're probably getting Zhonya's anyway quite soon. In fact, does he even get it on this back? No, he doesn't get it on this back, but you push in another wave or 2, he'll have that. You're already getting 3 items coming in for other carries, so Faker will be soon behind them. Exactly. Chronicler calling out the very important things there. The only things you've actually invested which have long-term, that have any kind of like cost to them, is a flash and a stopwatch from Faker. And as we said, the stopwatch isn't even that much of a cost. He'll get his Zhonya's soon. Didn't the minimum age for Pro Leagues raise after Season 1-2? Yes, you're right. It's why Reckless couldn't play in Season 3 for Fnatic. He had to wait until Season 4. That's when they played with Shushe. Was it Shushe in Season 3 for them? So it went to 17 or 17 and a half, I think, and then it went to 18 on LEC this year. I think in the LCK you can still play it younger, I think. I think it was EU where it was younger, but then Korea's a bit weird because they have like the Korean age system where everyone has the same, but everyone turns 1 year older on the same day. They're actually changing it this year. And then they also start at age 1 rather than age 0. So Korean age is now over. They've moved to multiple things. Okay, so now Faker has stopwatch again. You have flash for everyone. You don't have it on Owner. What's happening here? So yeah, I mean, oh my word, Zeus does damage. Oh my word. So this is so good time because I just noticed this when this was happening. Look at when they're timing this. 3 seconds on Callisto, by the way. And that would save light. Blam. Dead. He dies half a second before Callisto comes back up. Oh my word, Zeus is playing these fights so well. Zeus' sense of timing and the way he gets into these fights is absolutely disgusting. This is such a good Gwen game. Zeus plays this Gwen game out so immaculately well. Around the Baron fight, it's him running forward with Ghost and W and just tanking the entire enemy team with W. That is an insane couple of fights from Zeus. Zeus is a very good player of League of Legends, folks. Gwen is immune. Gwen is immune.
And by the end of that game, the kill score is 1-14.
And I'll also say, just to put this on the record as well, I think the Shy in Game 1 was not the problem. In Game 2, he made a lot of bad mistakes, and he was the problem, though. Like, I think the rest of the team, they tried to make cross maps, but the Shy made some big individual errors. Some big individual errors. The first kill onto Draven was completely avoidable. He just had to walk away from the bot turret. Of course, before that, he died in top lane as well. It was a real mess. A real mess. And you don't get how Weibo beat BLG. This is what Weibo have done the entire year. It really, it makes me laugh to an extent because a lot of people were trying to build up Weibo as like this incredible team that do the impossible things. And they do half of the time. The other half of the time, this game's like this, folks. I think that there was a bit of an overforce on certain narratives that the Shy is back and like this team is definitely world beating and they can flip any game. And there is a degree in truth of it. But whenever you say that, you have to combo it with, oh yeah, also they int half their games. Like, that just tends to happen, folks. Like, half the time, Xiaohu will have a bad game. Like, the Shy will have a bad game. Weiwei's had some shockers, too. Crisp has had some awful games. The one person who's consistent on this team is Light. Light is the one person who's consistent on these. I don't think Light had much he could do in most of these games, honestly. So, I think this is just classic Weibo stuff. This isn't a collapse from Weibo. This is just Weibo. Weibo are consistently inconsistent. We were basically saying this throughout the entirety of this year. Oh, cupcake. That is lovely. Lovely. But yeah, I think that there was a big missed story opportunity from a lot of different people talking about how Weibo are like we were saying this the entirety of LPL this year. We coined the term for them, consistently inconsistent. They play to the level of their opponents. They absolutely do, which means they have a winning record versus JDG this year, which is hilarious. But they also would lose games too, as 7 loss streak Invictus Gaming to bottom tier tables, table teams.
Anyone's Legend at some point.
Well, funnily enough, Anyone's Legend took a game off of BLG and JDG in the same week.
That's
right. So Anyone's Legend and the LPL are like, they were like the worst team for a very long time, but they'd always have a very strong game 1. They come into series very, very well. So they beat JDG and BLG in the same week just for game 1. They lost the rest of the series, but it was really funny on that.
Did they have my boy 1xN on them?
No, that was TT.
TT.
Because they had Ucal as their mid laner.
That's right.
Ucal was supermanning them. He was the one-man army. But 1xN had some really good Aphelios.
All I'm saying is, for all that his Aphelios win rate isn't that high, 1xN's
his Aphelios is really good, yeah.
The eye check on that champion
funnily
so
enough,
good.
1xN 1v9'd against Jaculov Zeri while playing Aphelios. There's a really fun clip of him like exploding the entire team with like a 3-up switch. It's really, really fun.
Yeah,
really good.
He's just good. I really rate that guy.
But yeah. But like Weibo have always been a team that can show up and then just explode disastrously within the same series. So I think it's hard when you're on like a world finals kind of like setting to say like, how do you display that in a way that doesn't kill the hype? But like, there was always the chance that this team could just randomly explode. It just so happened that it had to be in finals. They had really bad drafts. I think they should never have chosen blue side. I think it should have been a red side finals. I think that they were baited into that by having good blue side games against BLG. And honestly, this team, they had so much more to show in finals, but they always have more to show because they just throw half their games.
If I could step in on that briefly, I wonder as well whether you could see Weibo had a really, really distinct plan on how they, because I think they were aware as well. They like there was a really good sequence of translated posts from, I want to say Hupu or possibly Weibo, one of the big sites where one of the Chinese like big commentators saying, look, Weibo are really, really screwed in my opinion. Here's why. I did a really, really long deep dive about why, particularly things like the double AD carry bot lane is a bit of a misnomer for a bit of a false flag for T1. It's like, it's not that. It's just they have loads of options that allow you to just pick people permanently in the bot lane, like the Renata, the Bard. Like, immobile carries get really screwed by Carrier's champion pool right now. And the double AD carries that get banned are Ashe and Varus a lot of the time. That's the, and they are like really, really good with the R buttons of just catching people out. And the long and short of this one is, because I want to go through that post, is basically saying, look, I really worry about Weibo's pick ban because I don't think they have answers here. Even when you're seeing Chris pull out this stuff, I still think T1 have got more options. There's a lot more detail than that. But the long and short of it is like there was some. I think Weibo were quite aware of that too. And so they come into the series and they try something different, and they basically say, "Well, fuck it, Faker's only played like 3 champions. Can we try attacking that maybe?" And that's what they try, right? They ban that pretty heavily. They try to take him onto something that maybe even if Faker can play it, the T1's not practiced with.
But this is
but
the wrong.
I don't think it works.
So,
I can see why they tried.
And they tried it for multiple games and it failed in most of those games. Okay, folks, let's get on to game 3. I'm going to leave this running for a bit. I'm going to get myself with coffee, and I'm going to get back into game 3.
Enjoy your coffee.
Surely, it's very nice. Everyone who watched the LPL knew this was the most coin flip team in the world. I knew. Yes, exactly. If you watched LPL, which you should watch LPL. Haha, being able to watch LPL in English next year, by the way. We don't know whether there's going to be an LPL English broadcast next year yet, because the current broadcast will, as far as we know, not be functioning at the same level. So if you enjoy LPL, yeah, we could use your support right now to get someone to pick us up, because Weibo are they're such a fun team. We'd love to be able to carry them more, like carry their stories more regionally. Right, let's get into game 3 and get into draft. I need to move my camera back, don't I? Yes, next Worlds is in Europe, and finals is going to be in London, so that's going to be very, very fun. Hopefully I'll get to see a load of you there. Let's get into this draft. Tom said he's going to pick us up. Wait, really? Did he say that? I'm not a fan of the LPL for a while, but I really wish I can help LPL casters too. Yeah, we need all the help we can get, folks. The LPL is in a bit of dire straits right now. We have a very talented team. I love working with everyone on the show. They love the region. I love the region. And I wish that we get to cover this team. And yeah, you know, sadly, this is not the best note for the LPL to end this year off. They get really mashed in these games, but yeah, it's still a really interesting region. I love this team of Weibo, even though I hate them at the same time. I love them too. They are the most coin flip team in the world. But yeah, they made it to World Finals, which is such an incredible story. So let's go into this draft. We'll stop at the end of first bans, and then we're going to go see what we can get through. So once again, T1 haven't budged. They haven't budged on their bans. They're basically saying, look, these are going to be the blind picks we're going to remove from you. Now, the funny thing is they actually ban the Orianna last. And I think the reason they do that is because they see no mid lane bans here for the first time. There are no mid lane bans here, folks. Weibo aren't the coin flip team. They are the coin itself. I love that. You know what? I'm going to steal that, Kritzko. That's a great line. I love that. Tom said he's considering hiring the English broadcast, but he's not been more spoken about it because he doesn't know about the cost and everything. Yeah, I mean, we have day rates that we're working for right now, but I mean, hell, we'd just love to be able to cover the region more. That'd be what we're looking for, really. But yeah, so we don't have any mid bans this time, and these are still the same blinds. These are still the same blind picks being banned out. These are still exactly the same ones. So what is Weibo thinking here? So you've banned out the Renata. So that's one of the laning phase bans which has gone through. We've seen that carry has been very, very impactful on this. We've seen the Ashe go through. Is this going to be a Kalista first again? I think this has to be Azir first, right? This has to be Azir. Because that feels like it is one of the picks. It's only really hard count. I say hard count. It's only really given trouble by Nico and Orianna. And then you have to ask, well, okay, what's Faker going to lock into the Azir? Now, funnily enough, Faker's had Akali banned away from him the entire tournament when Azir's been locked in. So there's a chance that that Faker locks in Akali here. And of course, for those of you that watched it, we know that he does end up locking that in. But the Azir as the first pick is largely uncounted, left by everything on the table right now. This gives you a lot of value. But now it makes you think, okay, well, are we going to be locking in Kalista here now? Is this Kalista for Gumayusi? Do we lock in that here? What else is left open here? And they don't lock in the Kalista, they lock in the Zyra Khan instead. Now, I wonder if this is because, so Kalista means short range. Zyra Khan gives long range engage. Kalista ult can technically be long range engage, but Zyra Khan gives you ability to reach the Azir. That's the big thing here. Yeah, use the Striker means it's an official Riot broadcast. Yeah, LPL was not run by Riot this year, folks. So like nothing about what's happening with the LPL broadcast is about Riot. I would imagine Riot are as surprised by this as we were. So yeah, it's absolutely not to do with them. We'd love to. I'm sure that the broadcast would love to get picked up by Riot. I just want to keep working LPL, man. Just want to keep working as a caster. Do you think if Akali was banned, Faker would play Yone? He was playing it in scrims. They flexed it in scrims. But that doesn't mean it always worked out. So now they lock in the Varus. So this is now hyper long range. Hyper long range. Even with on hit. Because Varus ult. So this is really quite scary because now you have long range engage from the Zyra Khan, but you can get picked off so cleanly by Weibo with this comp. Kalista means short range, just in general. Just in general, Kalista means short range because Kalista can't join a lot of the long range fights. The Zyra Khan gives you longer range engage because the Rakan can just engage from forever. And the thing is, it's much easier for Rakan to get a long-range engage on his own than it is for Kalista to set up for an engage. Kalista wants to be hitting the front target. Rakan wants to be hitting he can hit anyone he freaking wants to. Rakan's just super, super strong right now. So now we have, once again, more range pick. Plus laning phase strong. Yeah, Bard's laning is actually very strong. He has very good early damage. What do you think about picking Poppy instead of Bard here? I mean, Weibo's had a great tournament. He's actually had a really great tournament. Poppy is arguably his best champion. But I think you need to lock in. I think this is fine because it's winning bot lane early, which is something which, if you lose bot lane early versus T1, you pretty much lose the game. I think T1 has a lot of mobility, making the pick potential way more unreliable. The thing is, this is true. But you have Bard ult to really unsettle Xayah. And the Varus ult can pick off the front target pretty well. So right now, Xayah is not in the most happy spot. And Rakan doesn't love this comp either, actually. But this Akali locked in is really, really big. So this has actually been banned from Faker a lot. And this is kind of an accepted Azir counter. From a few years ago. And funnily enough, you know what? This is a fun story. We'll stop and talk about this very briefly. Because everyone thought that Azir demolished Akali in lane up until Faker started playing it on stage and in scrims. And effectively, this started coining a term. And I'm trying to remember who talked about this. It might have been Humanoid that talked about this on an interview sometime in the LEC. Where the way that EU players now talk about certain matchups is like, oh, this is a winning matchup, unless they're Faker. And this happened because of Faker's Akali into Azir, because he was winning the Azir matchup harder than anyone thought that you could win that. It was meant to be kind of like you lose it until maybe skirmishes get you ahead and you start getting kills. But Faker was winning the matchup so hard that it was like, oh, he's just Faker. He just wins this matchup. So he developed this Akali matchup into the Azir, and he showed it in Pro around 2018, 2019. Or whenever it was. I can't remember when he started pulling it out specifically as a counter, though. Varus can be quite scary into Rakan. If he messes up his engage, he gets rooted, and Varus can punish him in lane with more damage from range than Rakan likes. Yes, you're absolutely right. I think that Rakan against Varus Bard walks up to fish for a Q, eats a lot of damage to the face, and dies. So this is good for laning phase, and it's good for a lot of... Now, the problem is, and you're actually, who mentioned this? Razor Shark X. I think this is where your point becomes very relevant, so I'm going to shout you out for this one. Now, this pick comp is very good against the Xayah. Very good against the Xayah. It's not awesome versus the Akali, because yes, you can end up rooting the Akali down, but Akali with W, with E, and then with ults has a lot of mobility and a lot of ways to escape those kind of picks, and especially with the first part of ult as well. So you need some more answers to the Akali. This Akali right now is looking at 3 squishy champions who she can get on top of and kill. And like Faker is really quite happy with this angle. And now you lock in the Azir again. Okay, so once again, more mobility, lots of mobility to escape pick. This is so much mobility. It's very hard to lock these champions down. You need more. You need more. I still think Bard is in a bad spot here. T1 can engage from multiple angles, especially so early when they can predict the Akali coming in on 3. I think that because Faker hadn't played the Akali here, maybe they thought that he would take Sylas again. If he takes Sylas, I think this is a very different game. Or even Ahri, something like that. Maybe they didn't expect the Akali, but I think that Weibo didn't expect a lot of the picks coming in from T1. So now this is a very different 4-5. So what this is saying is, okay, this is them saying, okay, we can win early push. Let's get Cannon strong lane. And just allow Bel'Veth to screw with enemy jungle. That is how I would characterize what's happening here on 4-5 from Weibo. The problem with this now is Bel'Veth is in a very rough spot. This is a really big issue now, though. Because if Bel'Veth doesn't hyper pull ahead early and just hyper snowball, this is going to be very, very rough. Also, and then there's also another thing here too. Kennen has to be the one to deal with the Akali. Because the reason why Kennen has to deal with Akali is Akali can drop into Shroud and deal with most of these other champions. You can't deal with the Kennen ult that way. So Kennen ult here is meant to get on top of the Akali and stop Akali from just like ruining the entire game. Also, Akali just takes Merc Treads this game and is probably very, very happy.
I do think you want to be pretty careful about what you're playing into a Kennen plus a Bel'Veth. A lot of times we've seen it heavy on the invades, heavy on that top side pressure.
Yeah. So you have Azir, which is a good early pushing lane. It should still get early push versus the Akali. The Kennen is going to get early push as well. And we see the last pick of the Aatrox coming in here as well. Now, the thing about this Aatrox is... Aatrox, if you go for the lethality build and you get ahead of the Kennen, bops this Kennen super hard. If Kennen gets a loaded burst onto the Aatrox and he's gone for like a more of a Gordrinker build, he has to take slower trades versus you, and you can turn around with a big ultimate and you can kind of skip around his Qs. Against the lethality Aatrox, if he hits like 1 or 2 Qs onto you, effectively you're dead. So with Zeus' Aatrox, this is actually quite a good pick into the Kennen. Even with the changes to Aatrox to change his passive and his W to magic damage, so he gets less value from lethality, it is still a very good pick here. So now Weibo have a very hard to play comp. This is very hard to play. Very hard to play. He needs to snowball early. Yep, they need to snowball early here. Dealing with Carly later is hard. Need to smash lanes. And what T1 want to do is see if Aatrox can get ahead. Use superior mobility to outplay picks. And force the relatively immobile Weibo comp to make mistakes and use Lee, Khan, Carly to chase. That's a lot of text on here, but this is basically what they want to do. They want to see how uncomfortable they can make Weibo by outplaying their picks, pull them apart, chase them down with better mobility. That's typically how I'm going to view this T1 comp. They have harder lanes to play than a lot of the other games in this series. But with the way that Owner and Faker have been playing this tournament, this series rather, they've been very much on the same page. So I think that this is going to be quite the hard game from Weibo. Quite the hard game. These are probably the hardest drafts we've seen to play this series though, on the whole. Do we know who does the draft pick for T1? They don't really have coaches anymore. So it is worth noting that in pro teams, the players have a lot of say in the champions they pick. So it's not just coaches. Their interim head coach, Tom, does obviously probably leads part of the draft, but the players are the ones which often give final say on things. I'm going to say that Faker often calls for his blind picks. This series, he was banned out a lot, so he couldn't use those blind picks to the same degree. But largely, I think you're looking at Zeus, and you give Zeus like a full look at the draft, and you say, what have you got that can deal with this comp? And most of the time, he's had a really good answer. I hate the Weibo draft. It's hard to catch people. No point in click CC. Okay, so let's think about... I know in the draft it's kind of hard, but let's have a look at this Weibo draft then. What would you pick and change from this comp, which would change things onto T1? One thing, which I actually think would be really, really good here, I actually think you can go Leona here. I think you can go Leona onto Crisp, and I think you're much, much more happy. It's one of his classics. It works really well into the Rakan. I think Leona Nautilus could really work. Hard engage supports have kind of fallen off a little bit, but I think that actually that could really work. And then something like a Poppy could also really work. That's what we would have really liked to see. There are literally 4 Dash champions on the other side. Weiwei's best champion is the Poppy. So if you have some more comfort for Weiwei and Crisp, I think that works really well. Even though we don't see that much cannon from the Shy, and we haven't done it even when it was meta this year, I think it's a fine pick. It's actually pretty good into the Aatrox. It works very well early. Xiaohu's best champion arguably is Azir. Light's a good Varus too. The lanes are fine. I think that jungle support should have been something a lot more easy to play and a lot more comfortable for them. And also, it just turns out it's better for them. So, yeah. How about Camille top? Camille, after the durability patch rather, really struggled to win the same lanes because she was a very bursty laner. She'd play around her passive, and she'd like take 2 trades with her passive and kill you on the 3rd. Can't really do that now because everyone's too hard to kill at that point. So you have to take too many trades in a row. It's too hard to pull off. Even against something like Aatrox just kind of turns around and kills, you know. Send Poppy top Sejuani jungle. Honestly, not a bad idea. Yeah, honestly, not a bad idea. I would like to see that too. Just not this. Now, funnily enough, I have to say, I think that when I viewed this at the start of it, when I saw this locked in Game 3 yesterday, I said this is probably T1's riskiest draft, and I think that's still true. Because I think the risk is you can still lose top lane hard, you can lose mid lane, you can lose bot lane. If Bel'Veth starts to snowball, Lee Sin starts to fall out of contention very, very early. So why... So Rakan walks up to contest early on top side. Aatrox is also fairly strong early as well. Worth noting with the Comet, you have a stronger level 1 than Conqueror in bursty trades. But I still think that maybe Weibo should have gone for the early invade, because that's what you're picking for. You want to have strong level 1 champions that can maybe make this work. Imagine if you had a Nautilus for Crisp, and Nautilus or Leona comes up here and helps with the invade. The level 1 of the Nautilus is so much better, man. Yeah. I think this is a big misplay from level 1 from Weibo potentially, because you need this Bel'Veth to be ahead. And I think you just have to say, you know, pathing be damned, we're just going for enemy Raptors. Nast is a strong level 1. Doubt. Doubt. Yeah, I think this is really clever from T1. So Zeus is around for the level 1. He knows that he's gonna like lose something on top side, but he has. I mean, actually, level 1 for Matrix is not awful versus Cannon, because you have Comet. You have Comet Q, which is pretty good. G1 and Q, thanks for the follow. I really appreciate it. Jink? Is that how you meant to pronounce that? Yeah, thanks for the follow. But because you now have the leash from Ona can now respond to whatever Weiwei's doing very early. Bel'Veth needs to be ahead, so the leash getting Ona ahead, even though it's at the cost of a top lane start as well, it protects your Raptors. It's a good leash to get him ahead in terms of jungle play. I think that's really important. He just needs to be responding to Weiwei.
Incompetent.
And Calpula, thanks for the follow. Really appreciate it.
And we'll see where Weiwei does want to go, because he is just power farming on his bot side for now. So we'll be clearing up towards top, but no sort of a move towards an invade.
Yep, going to be able to finish off his red buff.
The UI does not show Bard's rune. It doesn't even show his chime count. It shows how many meeps he has, weirdly, which I don't think is very valuable. I think I'd much rather see his rune. Same with Bel'Veth. It shows her Lavender and Bloom stacks. But so, for instance, I didn't know if she took Conqueror or Press the Attack. Apparently, it's Press the Attack. You know what? Let's check runes real quick. Let's check runes real quick. Are they gonna show us down here? Normally on LoL Esports they do show. Oh, I guess they're not today. Not on this game. Normally, if you go on LoL Esports, you look below, they'll show you the runes, which is very, very helpful. Yeah, Crisp and Light, they get the early push, but it's not chunking out Goomer and Carrier. Plus, there's no bot side invade coming in. This is, you know what? This is another thing which comes in from the Raptor leash. So you can see that, so if you look on the minimap, Ona went from Raptors down to bot side Clay, went blue, and he went up here, I'm pretty sure. And now he's going back up this way. Because of the leash on Raptors, he makes it quicker into bot side jungle, which means that when the crash comes in on level 2, just before level 3, if you're looking for a play and Bel'Veth and then the bot lane move in because they have bot lane prior, there's nothing to fight. There is nothing to fight. So they walk into bot side jungle, they find nothing because Ona is ahead of the clear and he gets to get his full camps early. There is no camp steal coming in from Bel'Veth. Was it Conqueror on Bel'Veth? I have seen press the attack earlier in this tournament, weirdly. So, yeah, press the attack on Bel'Veth is a thing, though. Funnily enough, I had this question in an earlier game, and I was like, wait, I can't see what rune it is. Is there some, you know, I'm expecting Conqueror, but what is it? And it turns out it was press the attack. So, yeah, that took me off guard a little bit. But yeah, I think the early pathing has been far more valuable for T1 than it has been for Weibo. Zeus has lost the early shove early, but that's fine. I think in what you've gained in jungle and stopping Bel'Veth from taking over is absolutely fine. If you get flash away from the Shy here, he just uses E as well. Yeah, this is bad from the Shy. He gets the passive auto. Yeah, the slow. Oh, man. So once again, the Shy just off the... He's just not on the same page as everyone else. So this is, you know what? Let's compare Weibo to T1 with this. So what happens when T1 have winning lanes in both top lane and bot lane, which they've done very commonly across this series and then into the playoffs as well, not in this game necessarily, is they have Faker also buying pressure in mid lane, and then Ona will just always be at the right point in the map to go and respond to a play. So Faker's kind of like soaking up enemy jungle attention, and Ona is answering somewhere else. T1 are very good at using Ona to get into the enemy jungle when they're ahead, and making sure that he is tracking what the enemy jungler is doing. We saw that against JDG pretty much every game. In this game, we don't see it, though, from Weiwei. The Shy's pushing forward. Light and Crisp are pushing forward. They've pushed up, and they've put some wards in bot side. Xiaohu's pushing forward as well. So you have 3 pushing lanes. Weiwei needs to be in the enemy jungle. He needs to be in the enemy jungle, because this is what happens when this doesn't happen. So game 1, I think, was not the Shy's fault. I think he was in a bad draft. Game 2, I think he made individual mistakes. Game 3 is a weird bit of both, and some of it's on Weiwei. Because I think part of it's the game plan. They didn't get into the enemy jungle early onto Raptors. They didn't manage to do anything with the bot side clear as well, because Weiwei just went top to bot. Oh no, he went Raptors first. So they ended up not interacting at all. Weiwei has not spotted Owner in this early game. That is the big difference when T1 has their counter picks for top lane and they have their fun champion pools for bot lane. They get early push, and then Owner also gets into the enemy jungle. When Weibo try and do the same thing, the Shy is left alone. They don't see Owner coming. He dies. Freebie for first blood. Goes over to Owner. T1 are so much better at playing winning lanes early on. It's not an instant win. It's not always an instant win. You need to cover your lanes if they're winning as well. Because if they're pushing, they're also they're open for ganks. So this is a big mistake from Weibo. You need this cannon to be ahead. The cannon is your Akali answer. It's a huge amount of your team fight damage. This cannon isn't against an exhaust either. There's no exhaust for the cannon. So this is really, really good. And yeah, you can see that Xiaohu has to flash as well. Faker tanks an extra turret shot there. He presses the S key just because he knows he's going to live, just in case Owner wants to do something. And then suddenly you've got Xiaohu's flash down. But this is good. This is good at least. Okay, what happens here? So they have a ward down bot side. So they... Oh, so actually, watch the minimap here. I think that Goomer and Keria, they are so close to getting out here. Weiwei uses one of his Qs down right to get closer to the bush to get to the portal early, which means that they have like an extra half-second advantage on Goomer and Keria as they're backing off. Interrupts the battle dance as well. That is close as heck. Oof. If Owner goes into tower first, can Faker flash in and kill as it? I don't think so. I don't think so. It's close. So they get a kill onto Light, who's going for the on-hit Varus. He's got the lethal tempo. Do I agree with on-hit lethal tempo? I think I do, because I think you're not going to get slow fights. You want... With on-hit Varus, you can play a bit faster than poke Varus. Now, poke Varus, when you have other poke threats, can be fast because you just throw one arrow and it kills with like a Jace or, I guess, or something more AP poke. I mean, it is not awful with that. But like, you're CCing someone down and then they die. If you start trying to get through multiple arrows, every single member of T1 runs at you and kills you. So you need to have on hit. I think it gives you better turnaround damage, and you can maybe get good damage by like rooting up someone as they dash in and then killing them. Someone like the Lee Sin or the Rakan. It's harder for the Akali because she pops Shroud, and then you can't auto attack. But getting a kill onto the Varus, that helps a lot. I think that's good gold early. But you still have lost quite an easy first blood on top side, and Xiaohu's lost his flash in the mid lane. Faker is not behind his CS in mid lane. Again, the Akali's actually been doing quite well in this. Faker has always been good at this matchup. He's kind of invented this matchup for the mid lane as Akali as an Azir counter. No one was playing it before him in around the Akali rework. Okay, actually at that time everyone was playing Akali. That's different. But there were some points in some seasons after Akali had been toned down. So now we're looking at potentially Crisp roaming around to get portals in towards topside. Zez doesn't have 6 yet. He just gets it now, so he has the World Ender. Is this enough? I think it is enough. Yeah. So that's just Bard stuff. So this is much better from Weibo. And this is what happens when you don't get into the enemy jungle and start tracking the enemy jungler and support from Owner. So one of the big things is, so Faker's done this again. Faker always does this. Whenever he gets any time in mid, he puts this ward down on Raptors. If you look on the minimap, Owner's down towards Gromp. If your jungler is on Gromp and and everything's around there, like this is just not playing much against Bard, folks. You don't have wards in the enemy jungle. You need to spot them in your enemy jungle because the portal can come over that wall. This is only a gank which happens really on blue side. This used to be the same when we saw Rek'Sai as well. Rek'Sai could tunnel over this wall. This is a Rek'Sai Bard wall, which is just really annoying. And weirdly, Zeri as well if she's rotating. Zeri can do that too. Now, funnily enough, my first ever LEC day, I did a Zeri champion spotlight, and I talked about this wall being very important for her. Same on the other side of the map too. I should go back and clip that out and see how much of that is held true. So, Zeus ends up dying, this is important. The Shy ends up pushing in another wave, which means a full cannon's going to be missed by the Zeus. That's important, that's fine. You're not fighting for an objective right here anyway, and it's 2 minutes until Herald, so you'll have your ult up for the Herald fight. That's fine, that's okay. Is Varus going mid to avoid being... Let's have a look-see during this. So this is something that happens when you're resetting from bot lane, because this is the talk about, okay, why is Varus going mid? If you reset from base and you go bot lane, and instead you just go mid lane, and then you have a choice to either go bot or go this, go top as well, or you can stay mid. What this means is that you might miss 1 or 2 minions bot, but because it's not that much big of a difference because it's so long to reset towards long lanes and the side lanes anyway, if you go mid lane, it leaves you open to answer to an opportunity and then go back towards bot lane if nothing happens. I think that they know that Lee Sin's going to be on Dragon anyway. They know that the wave's coming in. I think he feels unsafe being alone under turret because of Zyra Khan's very strong ability to dive you very early on into the game. So I think he feels unsafe being alone on bot turret because Crisp has left him to get an advantage topside. He goes mid lane in case Lee Sin walks across to try and threaten Xiaohu. And you weren't going to be safe under this turret anyway. So for me, that is the right call from Light. It's a shame that he's in that position to lose cannon minion and potentially give up a plate as well. But that's basically just saying, okay, if I go mid lane, I can kind of choose my options as I'm walking mid. And I think that's fine. Worth noting though, no CS lead on Weibo. He does have a couple of kills has a kill and assist, so he has some kill participation. But it's like not the best thing ever right now for this Bel'Veth. The Bel'Veth has not really done that much. So what are we thinking about right now? We have Dragon advantage for T1 despite the early winning bot lane for Weibo, because they chose to take that winning bot lane, roam Crisp, and then go towards top lane instead. So their cost is basically, right, we're going to lose a little bit on objectives to get something in topside. Always very dangerous, kind of walking up to this. If you look at like this wall, this wall is really dangerous to play against a bard because they can just like obviously just portal over here with a jungler, and that's very, very nasty. We saw that happen to them across this wall as well, right here, right? So bard has some interesting kind of like gank assist angles. It's annoying. I hated Bel'Veth with component items, that's why I switched to Briar. Briar is very strong. I think, oh, by the way, Briar is one of the best champions in the new arena mode. If you want to get free low on arena when it comes out, play Briar. Briar is very, very strong. She just runs at you and kills you. It's very, very annoying, speaking of someone that has not been playing Briar. Oh, by the way, quick pronunciation thing. It's not Xiaohu, spoken with like a Z. It's Xiaohu, as though it's an SH in English. Xiaohu, rather than Xiaohu. And Xiao means little. I can't remember what Xiaohu means, but Xiao on the whole means small or little. I can't remember what Xiaohu's name translates into. Little Tiger, that's the one. I forgot about that. That's my bad. That's one of the easier ones too. Yeah, Briar does just run at you and kills you. She presses like her, she presses the W and just runs at you. I was running Briar Conqueror and then Uncle Freak said go PTA Stride Breaker. Yeah, it's a nasty combo. Okay, so we have Herald coming up now. We have, this is one thing you have to note about Bard. Bard gets people into position on the map quicker because of his ability to get movement speed when he picks up chimes. If he picks up one of them, it's really annoying. And also the tunnels as well. But they still don't get in a position to protect the Shy here. Bel'Veth is coming up. They don't have Bard. Bard's in mid lane helping Xiaohu stay safe. The Shy has Flash and he has ult. I don't think Ono wants to commit. He doesn't have Flash, so he can't commit Flash. They have neither Flash on top side. Good dodge. The mini stun onto Zeus. He has Merc Tread, so it's not a long stun, but it means that he can't reposition his Q with E. Good Q afterwards as well. Zeus still doesn't have Flash. Ona gets it like now. He uses it now. Zeus still doesn't have Flash. Still doesn't have Flash. He has it now. So yeah, that's a bit of an overforce from T1. They didn't have the flashes. Even with Merc Treads, the stuns are a little bit much. And what's happening in bot lane? So Ghost was used from Light and Guma. This is important from Weibo. This is really, really important. Yeah, Chronicle is mentioning it now. Herald for Bel'Veth, very important because of her empowered form, and then also the ability to summon the Void Remora as well when you start summoning those Rift Heralds. Comp on Aatrox is very good for early laning phase, and it helps you kind of contest the cannon. Because cannon is less about taking long trades versus the cannon. It's about taking shorter, burstier trades, because he is never going to get tanky in his life. Yes, Aatrox Q was on cooldown. Actually, I don't know how many Qs he went through on this play. So right here, they had neither of their flashes. Even with the Merc Treads, the mini stun is enough to stop Zest from repositioning his Q with an E. Actually, did he use an E to get in position? I actually think he didn't have his E here. Ah, yeah, he E's for his W. Okay. That was a really good sidestep from the Shy. If he gets hit by one more Q, there's a chance that they stay and kill. Yeah. Crisp and carrier though. No 6 on carrier either, so we couldn't turn that around even if he was there earlier. Yep, no, I think a lot of this series, folks, has been about winning individual matchups. Winning lane. Zeus has been smashing the Shy in 1v1s. This game, it's hard of him to do so, but even then, if he gets to one item, like, this Aatrox is going to really start pumping out damage. Yeah, Stridebreaker on Weibo, good call out by Azael. That's really nasty. Now, if you overdive, you just instantly lose fights because Stridebreaker allows you to pin people into the fight longer because of the extra slow, and then just kind of run them down. It's less damage because you don't have something like a Kraken Slayer, which is seen as much more meta and high DPS. On well, no, I mean Stridebreaker on Bel'Veth is fine anyway, but like, in terms of meta stuff. But Kraken Slayer is your highest damage option on Bel'Veth, so you don't have that right now.
They're playing around topside, they're getting the Shy, like you say, into these positions. And even though Zeus isn't necessarily ridiculously far behind, as you can see in the CS, it's pretty close. But still, the Shy will have these very impactful ultimates. And
that's true. Good call out by Atlas as well. You know, the Shy is still in a good position, even if it's not like game breaking. So they're using the Herald in mid. They don't get any Remore because you have to kill. Oh, they have 1 or 2, but they need to kill minions to do that. So now Weibo need to get a second Herald to break this mid lane turret. I think Faker has done a really good job. Again, this Akali, which has been banned away from him a lot, he's been using it well as a okay, yeah, he's been using it as well. That's not important now. Let's talk about this fight. Okay, so the Shy has teleport, no flash. He has a couple of different teleport angles, but not having flash really hurts him. Zeus is walking down to the fight. Neither AD carry is going to get involved. This is a 3v3 in the mid lane. You have a choke point to put soldiers into and maybe put the ult as well, but Faker can potentially ult, flash, or E over. And Carrier with the Rakan is going to really, really get some good value here. He doesn't get his W, which is a pain in the ass. Ooh, that kick is really nice, because that kick CCs Xiaohu for long enough that he can't put his wall up. So he's charmed, he's kicked, and then Faker's beyond him. So now, if you'd ulted like along this line before they'd gotten into the play, it means that maybe they have to get maybe they have to use like Faker's ultimate a little bit earlier. Maybe they have to use Safeguard or something like that. I don't even think that was up at that point. But it denies a really good Azir roll. Really good CC combo between Carrier and Ona. They understand that they can't allow Xiaohu to disengage the play. You see that there's a teleport coming in from the Shy now, coming in right here. But Faker is already away from this. So now you have a problem where you were meant to be fighting in a choke point. Owner and Carrier do a great job of making sure the fight goes beyond the choke point, because now that means that this cannon coming in is not going to get that much value. So let's have a look at this. So now you have... Xiaohu doesn't even land anything onto the last bit there. How does he end up dodging that? So Faker then flies over with the E. He flies over with the E before the wall's summoned. Now it is literally just the Shy in a really bad place. This is not even the Shy's fault, by the way, folks. This is not his fault. This is Owner and Carrier making sure the fight is not kept in the choke point. And now you get a couple of kills, Bel'Veth's down, you get yourself a dragon, you get a teleport back towards top lane for Zeus. Xiaohu can teleport back in, but what's he going to do? He has a crown, he's not even got a damage item first. So he's teleporting in, but he doesn't have ult now. But how good is that from T1 to make sure that it's not kept in the choke point? If that fight... Okay, let's just go back to this again, because I know that the fight goes on a little bit longer. I don't think much happens there. But if you have an Azir roll, like right here, if you have it right here, I feel like Xiaohu should honestly cast it right now. But if you imagine if you have that right there, man, then suddenly you have Carrier and Owner back in towards there. You've disengaged them out. Maybe Faker goes beyond, but you're still in a 1v3 beyond that point. Fantastic kick, punishes the slight hesitation from Xiaohu. And the fight is just over at this point. If the fight gets split, T1 win this so well. You need to keep people clumped up in a choke point so you can get maximum value out of Azir soldiers and then the cannon. That was a bit of a hesitation from Xiaohu, really well punished by Owner and Carrier. I feel like the Shy shouldn't have come into the fight after at least the choke point. I think that he needs to teleport insta just on like muscle memory. Because if that Azir ult comes in, as his teleport is channeling, it's still fine. I think the teleport's maybe like a tiny bit late. I don't think they knew it was going to explode that far, but that's not a bad bard ult, but there's no follow-up. It doesn't do anything. There's no follow-up. This is really good for Faker here as well. I really want to point this out from Faker. So let's have a look at this dragon take. So you're in a 4v4 at this point. No, 4v3. 3v4 rather for the side of Weibo. So you're still afraid of soldiers coming in. Faker leaves the clump and makes sure that there is no value for Light getting a lot of hits or something like a multi-person bard queue coming in from this direction or something like this. So Faker moves out of the pit, makes sure that Light and Crisp can't just fire into this direction, they have to consider this direction too, and he immediately breaks the crown which Xiaohu just bought. Faker immediately identifies the issue in the Dragon Pit, gets the defensive ability away from Xiaohu so he doesn't have the damage reduction, gets an E out of the bard ult as well. Because he's not caught in the bard ult, he once again realizes there's not enough damage for people to screw with him. He has the Shroud, so you can't even auto-attack into this direction as well. Light has to back off. Faker, in 2 separate instances, within like 10 seconds, is warding off members from his team. This is a really clean phase of play from Faker to make sure that his team can disengage safely. That is really clean from Faker. Even though it doesn't lead to a kill or anything. Like, Faker uses his W and he uses his ability to just walk at the enemy really well there. I noticed that when it was live and I was thinking, hey, actually, though that doesn't lead to a kill right there, that was really clean. And obviously just before that, he hops over the Azir ult too. So Faker's having a really clean Akali game. On an individual level, I think this is probably his best executed game. This Akali game has been really good, even just so far. Crisp never used his ult that fight. Yeah, what could Crisp do here? So he's walking out here. But where does he cast his ult? Where does he cast his ult? Maybe he can cast, who does he cast his ult on? Where? I actually don't think there's a good bard ult angle here.
His fate is sealed, flashes over the wall just to die to Zaze, actually giving him the reset. And then this is the point where already as Weibo, you have this incredibly strong, level 6 comp with...
Very early in the fight and wait for the TP. Yeah, maybe. But I think that, again, T1, they make sure that they're never clumped long enough. They're really good at never staying clumped in that phase of play. If they clump, there's a good chance that they can lose. The reason this game looks one-sided is that T1 identify the terrain and the type of clumping that can lose them the game. This is really clean from Owner, Carrier, and Faker. They did such a good job of making sure that there was never an optimal fight for Weibo. Is Faker the best mid laner of the tournament? Arguably, yes. Which we would not have said at the start of it, but arguably, yes. I was actually thinking this after finals. I think after this finals performance, I think you have to say that Faker is the best. I think that I don't think that he was immaculate. I think that the work that he did in draft for his team, though, very important. It's not always pretty blind picking the whole tournament. Not every meta is going to allow you to have blind picks which carry the game. I think Orianna was that, but then it ended up being banned so much. But the fact that he was just putting in the games on the Orianna and the Azir, and then, of course, the Sylas a little bit later, too. He was giving his top lane and bot lane so much ability to do stuff while still impacting the game without those same counter picks. I do think that Faker was the best mid at this tournament. Yeah. Even if it wasn't always flashy. Of course, he had his flashy moments, but it wasn't always flashy. He just got down and did the hard, dirty work. He just knuckled down. And that is a very admirable skill set to have. I think that's testament to the new age of Faker. The new age of Faker has been about adding as much value to the team while shouldering the burdens so his other teammates can have very powerful carry performances.
Outside of finals, been so consistent in even when he is behind, generating value. I remember a Jace game where he went
There's an argument for Knight as well, actually. I think that Knight actually had a pretty good tournament too at points.
And now he is playing the Lethality Aatrox yet
if you want to see some more justification for that, because I know that's a little bit out of left field, I'd really suggest going back into the stream VoDs here on my Twitch and watching the 4-hour review we did of that semifinals. I actually think he played quite well. In 5 years, the only thing that will be seen from this Worlds over and over again will be Faker's Shuffle. Oh, that's one of his best plays ever. One of the other things I might do in off-season, folks, is I might sit here on this channel and watch all of Faker's Worlds winning runs and pick out the plays from his Worlds winning runs that I think are the best. Maybe do like a top 5, top 10 of Faker's best plays from his World Championships. So now we have a second Herald. This is very important for Weibo, getting back into this game here and now. Because remember that they had the first Herald shoved into mid lane turret. means that T1's mid lane outer turret is at low HP. If they get the second Herald, they get to open up the map a little bit more and maybe allow themselves some better terrain to fight for next objectives with. So one thing that Weibo have really struggled with in the last few games is getting rid of flank vision and stopping the flankers from having really good value. So what's happening here? You can see that the Shy is warding off one side here, so there's no flank angle here, but the Blast Cone obviously adds in a really scary threat here. What have you got? You have Carry with Flash, Ult, Ignite. He's very happy to go in. And you can see that Light is separated from the team. So you don't have your on-hit Varus. You have a Crown on Azir without a second item yet, so your damage in this clump is actually pretty low. Your damage here is low. The Shy's not here as well. You don't have Light as well to put in extra damage. So while this feels like safety in numbers right here, this is actually a bait. You don't have your damage to stop T1 from just running at you. Faker has teleport. He has ult. He's getting ready for this too. The Shy gets back into position, but Light isn't there. You have flash and ult from the Shy. What's he do with this? T1 makes sure that they're not grouping. The Shy has to back off from Zeus. Zeus wards him off very well. And they end up peeling off. So it stops the Herald coming through. I think that's important. I think that the Shy was in position to flash ult potentially if everyone dove in. It's a delay on the Herald though. Now what ends up happening here? Light is still separated from his team. This is perfect. I was actually just about to do that myself. I was just about to do this myself. Because that corridor there means that Light can't join the party. Yeah. So now they don't... And the win here from T1 is that they stop Weibo from taking a clean Herald. Again, if another Herald goes into mid lane turret from T1, they lose it for free. It's very low HP. I think if Carrier flashed over the wall, they demolish Flight. No, because then you dive too far into the Shy, getting like a big one-item spike ult as well. These items for Kennen are actually very strong at this point in the game. You have a lot of Magic Pen, because Rocket Belt comes with some on its own. You have 18 from the boots as well. And then you also have level 11. So you have your rank 2 of your Slicing Maelstrom. So if you flash into a choke point as Carrier, even with Merc Treads and 3 Merc Treads on your team, the Shy wrecks you. So that's good from T1 to notice that they can't fight into the clump. And I know the cast calls out the importance of denying the Belvest of the Herald more than necessarily taking themselves. Yes, that's a very good call. That is exactly the importance of that point too. Now the problem is, we're getting to a point where we have some side lane threats too. Because Kennen versus Akali, both are rank 2 of Ultimate. Merc Treads and Akali with a similar one-item spike as well on the Proto Belt and the Rocket Belt. This is getting to be a bit of a mess here for Weibo when it gets into side lanes again. Because while the Kennen works well against the Aatrox in the side lanes, the Akali's going to be a problem. Faker being the best mid in the tournament with Scout, Knight, Chevy, BDD, and Showmaker. Yeah, sure.
All we are is...
Yeah, it's I think a lot of them underperformed, sadly, don't get me wrong. But, Son of Oak. Gary, thanks for the follow. Hope the Pokemon Research Lab is doing well nowadays. Weibo looking for a pick, can't do anything. The pick potential from Weibo has really not been used well, and now we have 4 Merc Treads in. Suddenly this Varusol is feeling pretty crap. You need to be using this to look for a good pick. But the amount of tenacity on everyone here, when you look at 4 Merc Treads, and the Xayah with the ult as well, it's very hard to now pick off T1. I think T1, again, even though there is some physical damage on the side of Weibo, getting so many Merc Treads has really changed the way they play the game. The lab is doing okay. Tough in these inflation times, you know. Funnily enough, I read a really good Pokemon web novel, which is kind of like an alternate universe-y kind of thing, where a zookeeper starts to collect Pokemon. So it's a guy from like, I don't know, Minnesota or something like that. Was it Michigan? One of the American states. He kind of like applies modern earth science biology to catching Pokemon. It's a really good read. It's called Born of Caution. It's a really good read. It's genuinely a very good book. I enjoy it quite a lot. Okay, so another dragon fight. Weibo have been torn apart at these. T1 have really used their flanking angles really well, or flangles, as we like to call them here. We have, again, loads of Merc Treads to stop them getting picked off on the flanks, so Weibo, it's very hard for them to deny flank angles now. Carrier's on a good angle. Zeus is on a good angle. Faker can also fly in from here as well, pop Shroud as well, and be another threat. And the mobility of Owner can join the fight from pretty much anywhere too. So, once again, Weibo find themselves in a very difficult spot. They can never rush into a fight. You can see that I think the Shy has the right idea here. There's no point in him teleporting into a flank. You want to hope that people overdive into the center of a fight so you can stand with your ult on top of your teammates and stop them getting blown out. It's a very fun name for the T1 Challengers bot lane. I like that. Yeah. So this is the problem with the flanks. You are going to have lapses in vision. They don't have many ways to stop this. They see the soldier, and it's just too late when the soldier... With the soldier vision, it's just still too late. The Varasol... Oh, God, this is why I hate Bard, my least favorite champion in the game. Everyone hates this champion. So, Carry goes in. He gets a really good everything. So, the Shy immediately starts to ult. And you have the Varasol flying over as well. So, Varasol flies out this way. Kenadal is doing a whole load of nothing. Because the Bard ult stops them from doing anything. And then you have the Azir ult as well, which would have stopped someone flying in. Oh my god, that is such a bad Bard ult. I hate this champion, man. He's been ruining my game since 2015. Yeah, Faker's great, but Bard! Bard! The real villain of this fight is Weibo's vision control. The vision control is the real villain, but the Bard ult is just a cherry on. What is this? Imagine instead if you'd ulted here. If you ult these two, you can kill these two people on the flanks. Like, you can kind of separate these two people down. Imagine if it goes there instead. Don't ult, you cannon! Oh! What is that? Oh my god, that's bad. Oh my god, fried Oreos. Welcome to the channel. Thanks for the follow, I appreciate it. But like, I mean, and this is one of the big problems we were saying about once you start upsetting the positioning of the Weibo carries, which in this case, you know, you're fighting around odd terrain. Zeus is on an excellent flank here as well. The mobility from T1 is way too much for them to deal with. You have to flash out of here. Faker doesn't have to flash at all, just uses R2. You're effectively doomed at that point. Light as popped goes to try and ward off this 4-man unit, but there is nothing threatening Faker. This Akali can just walk in and do whatever the hell he wants. Really good Shroud use. Faker's Shroud use this entire game has bought him so much time, and he just, like, gets every bit of damage he needs to. This is a really good fight from Faker. This is an excellent fight from Faker. Bard is only for people who know how to use it. Absolutely. I'd prefer that to no one, but yeah. It's almost identical Dragon setups from the last. You're absolutely right. I think that Weibo's Dragon setups have lost them the World Finals. Their Dragon setups have been incredibly poor. I think in Game 1 even, they had a better 5v5 composition, but they couldn't find out ways to use it. Game 2, they had some good front to back. This one is harder because they have so few tools to deal with the flankers when they get into position after they've already got leads from laning phase, which we've kind of seen. That's a great engage from Carrier. But what is this ult, man? What is that ult? Yes, it hugely backfires. That is the most int play that we've seen. That's even more int than the Shy's overstay in top lane in Game 2. It's even more. That's so bad. Really good from Faker here, though. He just gets so much damage down. Great, great Shroud. Guma even almost worked as a cannon. I know, right? It's so hilarious.
We hadn't seen this year just yet.
I tell you what, it's pretty poignant seeing him play Silas and Akali in this series, though, after what happened last year.
Very true, Silas Akali. That was what Zeka used to beat him in the finals last year. Very true. Faker should get the Ahri skin, though. He's needed it for... He wanted Ahri in 2013 and 2015, 2016 when he won his Worlds. In 2013, he was not allowed an Ahri skin because Popstar had just come out, and back in that era of time, they didn't want to give too many champions too many skins at once. They've changed that ruling since now. It's now like separate from the rest of the skin dev schedule. And this is the side lane issue that we were highlighting a little bit last time because you have Merc Treads and you have Protobelts. You can't even just stun the Akali in place and hope you get out. You are just so outstatted at this point. But yeah, and then Faker didn't play Ahri in 2015, 2016, so they didn't allow him for that. What do you think is a better alternative support for Weibo here? I think Nautilus or Leona would be good. I think probably Nautilus because it stops you getting as much Merc Tread value because the knockups aren't affected as much. I think Nautilus would be good. I think you have Poppy in jungle. Yeah, I mean, you're just getting absolutely slaughtered at this point. The mobility's too much. Once you're losing a fight, you lose it hard. The second round of cooldowns of mobility from T1 are enough to run down any fight. And they get the fight just at 20 minutes. There is absolutely no way that Weibo can deal with this. The Dragon setup leads to this problem because they don't know how to recover their map state. But Light is really trying to get something done But what can you do here as this Varus? He hasn't even died this game.
We are
It's not his fault. Bob Junker, thanks for the follow. I appreciate it. So, Light, wait, where did Light use that ult? Did he use it on him? So, does he fish for the ult in the Shroud? He does hit him. He doesn't have his E? Ah, rip. Yeah, it would have been nice if he had, like, the ability to get the ult, get a 3-stack arrow, then auto him very quickly for another 3-stack on his E or something like that. That would have potentially been a kill, but yeah. I see, but don't they pick tank supports in late worlds meta? No, not really. I think in this game they could have done. Because Nautilus is pretty good into the Rakan. It's actually a pretty good matchup. Make sure my laptop. Yeah, I think that Nautilus would have been really good here. I think this is when you get a little bit too lost in the source and you don't have that heads-up decision-making to go, hang on, maybe a tank support would be better here for more consistent engage. Because Weibo have really struggled to find consistent engage in this game. And they're even losing their lanes now, you know. For what was effectively... I mean, the Kennen wasn't a counterpick, but you have finally winning match up top. Not actually winning. You were trying to get a strong blind pick in mid lane. Well, it's not actually that strong. You've lost against the Akali as well. Bot lane does okay. That's fine. But, like, Weibo, they just ended up doing so much worse with their counter picks than... Or, like, their blind picks than they really hoped they were going to. Hey, in regards to channel point rewards this stream, folks, I'm focusing on the VoD, so I'm gonna refund that stuff for this one, and we'll get onto that in the next one. Or maybe we'll do it a little bit later. But I want to focus on this VoD view right now. The big difference, really, between these two teams has been objective setup. T1 have used their flankers on impeccable timing. They have found themselves into positions where it's very hard for their flanking threats to be shut down. I think particularly Zeus on the Yone and the Gwen made himself so hard to deal with. Particularly in Game 2, I think that when the Shy was put so far behind on the Aatrox, it was just a real mess. It was a real mess. I think Naught into Rakan is fake. I think the matchup has evolved past the point where Rakan just has huge value compared to the Nautilus. I agree, but I think in this composition, it's enough. It stops Rakan having free engage threat. You can punish him quite well, because he doesn't... Even if you get Merc Treads, there's a chance that he just gets blown up, because Nasty has much less value. And he's too tanky now. Legitimately, Rakan is too tanky. He hits a Q, and he gets so much healing off of that too. And the mobility is too much. You need to end the fight before the second round of cooldowns come through. The move speed is too much from Zeus' ult at this point. Light is really trying. It's just, what can you do when there's literally no space to auto-attack? Oof. Oh, it's so sick. Yeah, the mobility is too much. They look for a pick away for an objective setup at once, but T1 are pushing in lanes harder. They have more mobility. They have more items, so you can even take fights in, as we saw there, a 1v2 at the start. You know, there's no damage on this Belveth at this point in the game. You don't have a Kraken Slayer to really force the advantage there. Akali for the tournament, special Ahri skin for 10th anniversary. I would go Ahri for the tournament, then LeBlanc for his 10th anniversary, right? I think Faker needs a LeBlanc skin at some point. That's the one to complete the set, folks. How special would that be? I mean, Rakan does bring more things, but I think Nautilus, but Naut has to stop people from jumping into light. And also, Nautilus does that without being hindered by Merc Treads as much, because the knock-up from your Q and your ult can't be ignored to that point. So I think that would have been very good. I think the Nautilus potentially. But like, even with a 1v2 at the start and Xiaohu coming in very quickly, just look at the move speed. Zeus gets hit so much more quickly. And yeah, even with, you know, Faker and Carry getting zoned off towards this boss side, it just doesn't matter. Zeus is too quick. He has ease, he has his ult. It's just way too much. T1 have found a lot of compositions in this finals, which are just... You know that one of my favorite cutscenes in gaming is Halo Combat Evolved's opening cutscene, which is like a, man, how did the Covenant get here? Well, they've always been faster. And again, T1 are faster. That's actually not a bad battle. But like, you have more, you have insane healing. The gold is just too much. Even with the Azir turret here. Okay, this is a bit silly, folks. This is a bit silly, folks. So he literally tanks... What items does he even have? He's not even full tank, folks. He has a Maw, an Edge of Night, and a Duskblade. He doesn't have any HP besides a little bit of Edge of Night. What the hell? He's level 15. He doesn't have his third tier result yet. He gets the healing from ult Q3. He's not autoing. He gets like a non-sweet spot Q. Duskblade comes through. Oh my god, that is so much more tanky than he deserves to be. Yep, this one is special. He just teleports to the base, man. Oh my god. Good line from Azel. I like that. Good line from Atlas. Let's listen to that again. That was good. That was good. I'm going to turn the volume up a little bit.
It was 7 years since their last, a decade since their first. The SKT legacy has been
That is a wonderful Nexus full line.
will be your 2023 world champions.
That was insane. That was a very good Nexus call. Calling back to the SKT legacy and then saying, you know, T1 reignites it. So it's kind of like that passing of the torch from SKT to T1. This is the first Worlds that T1 has won as opposed to the old SKT branding of the same org. We know the champs picked already. No Vasu, we don't. Faker was holding on to that. We're not sure about that. In the post-match conference, Faker said he was thinking about it. We've had some of the teammates say, oh, he might pick Ari. But we hadn't had a confirmation on that one. And we know that Carrier is picking between Renata and Bard. That's what they're saying. He said he really wanted Lux, but he didn't pick at this tournament. Crincy, this is a bit of a spoiler. Every caster preps pretty much every Nexus full line in important matches. If it's an important match, the Nexus full line is pretty much always prepped. And yeah, Atlas really nailed that. That is a very historic Nexus call. I think it really encapsulates a lot of the journey of this T1 thing. Azael with the line before that too, in terms of this times, it's like the amount of finals which they fell in. You know, they yeah, into like 4 times they fell down, or 4 times they got back up. That was really important too. So yeah, I mean, what an insane series from T1. I think Weibo came in with the wrong prep. I think that their objective setup was really lacking. I think that they really struggled to answer flanking threats from T1 the entire series, and I think that their blind picks were really quite exposed. I think that they came in with the idea that maybe they could get a mid lane difference just because Faker would not have impactful champions. As we spoke about in every single one of these 3 games, Faker was engaging at the right times. Yes, the Ari game, he missed a couple of charms, but he was looking for the right fights at the right moments. And then the Sylas game, perfect angle for the ult steals, really nullified the Maokai, and then had the Renata and the Nocturne to empower it to the point where he had better ults than the enemy team. That was fantastic. And then in this game as well on the Akali, it was his best individual game in terms of the team fights. He bought so much space. He knew his role within the team as well. Yeah, so Faker had a great series. I think Zeus had the best series overall. The way that he approached team fights on flanks, on an individual laning phase level, on a flanking level was really, really special. So, yeah, T1 walk away with a 3-0. I think that Weibo were blown out in terms of champion pools, in terms of objective setup, in terms of individual laning, and in terms of their team fight coordination as well. I think that in terms of the overall tournament, in terms of overall tournament, in terms of MVP, because I miss that I'm sad that we don't do overall tournament MVPs anymore, because I think that was really important to kind of encapsulate an entire thing. I think the finals is just one day. I think your body of work is more important than just one day in the finals. I think for finals, Zeus is MVP. I think that for the entire tournament, it might be Ona. Yeah, it might be Ona. I would personally give it to Carrier. I think Carrier's champion pool defined the late stage of the tournament. Carrier is the reason that they won this Worlds, realistically. I think that Carrier's champion pool, you can't overlook that. I think he's had an incredible tournament. But the best play of Worlds, of course, is the Faker Shuffle in mid lane. Didn't T1 lose 5 finals in a row, not 4? Yes, but I think it's in 4 international events they're talking about. Because, well, yeah, I'm actually kind of interested, because how many finals in a row did they lose? They lost MSI 22, they lost Worlds 22, they didn't get knocked out in finals in MSI, but they lost Spring, LCK, and then they lost finals in Summer as well. So no, it was 4 finals in a row. MSI 22. Oh, is this Summer 22 as well? MSI 22, Summer 22, Worlds 22. Then MSI, Spring 23, and then LCK Summer 23. So that's 5. Yeah, you're right, it's 5. I mean, whatever. It's a good line from Azael. The point gets across. Yeah, it's a bit awkward on the numbers, whatever. It's a good line. I mean, I would support that. I didn't notice it in the moment, so that means it's fine, honestly. But yeah, so anyway, that's going to wrap up our VoD review. I hope you enjoyed that. We'll go on to react to some other stuff now at this point. What have I